on there, view your films. Films.
Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Sequels suck.
Welcome back, fans of Sequels Suck. This is the big one. This is the movie I think Angus and me have been waiting for a long time. So there's a lot of, I don't even know what the word is. There's a lot riding on this movie because I think when you think of sequels and we think about the name Sequels Suck, it came from Scream 2, and we had a big conversation about that. We spoke to the great Patrick Luzier about his editing on the Scream trilogy, and he kind of hinted at it. He kind of endorsed this film. And I have a funny feeling now, after I look back at that conversation with him, that maybe he had seen this movie already, or rough cut, or saw a lot more, maybe a screenplay, because he definitely was pretty high on it. So it's been a while in the making, and I haven't actually heard his real thoughts. So Angus, I'm excited to hear what you think of Scream, which, again, is going to be one of those things that also echoes Halloween recently, in that they've got the name of the original, but it's still a sequel, and it's really number 5. And yeah, I know that was a long-winded, introduction, but Angus, say something.
Hey mate, good to see you again. Oh man, I don't even know really where to dive in with this. I do want to preface at the start that of all the movies we've talked about, this is the one that I've seen the least. I've only seen Scream 5 once at this stage. Yeah. So I don't, have you seen it twice now? Three times. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you definitely will have a much sort of more wide ranging. I'm coming in much more immediate. I've seen it once a couple of days ago, and it's ringing around. It's been living rent free in my head ever since. And no matter what we take away from this conversation, I think it's undeniable that the movie is memorable. I definitely haven't stopped thinking about just about every part of it. We talked about this. I think maybe in our looking forward to episode, or maybe just in chatting about other movies, I said right off the bat, I hate the title. I hate the title so much. Nothing has changed. Nothing in this movie made me change my opinion at all. I hate the title. It should be called Scream 5, or if you want to drop the numbers. I know that studios get weird about numerals at a certain point. They did it with Marvel. Marvel, after the Iron Man movies, decided no more numerals. They did it with Mission Impossible. They did it with Fast and Furious, kind of. Like they get weird about setting. No, so fine, I get it. It's been a while since Scream was around. You want to just do something like call it Scream again. I don't care. Like just it reeks of a lack of originality. And when they called it Scream, like, oh, we're calling it Scream for reasons you won't understand. Like it's a totally new way of looking at things. It's totally different. And that, I think, is a good jumping off point for talking about this movie. Is the pitch that I understood from all the media that I tried to avoid too many trailers, but all the media I read, all the interviews I read with the directors and the writers and everyone who was promoting the film, the big push in all interviews was down to Nev Campbell on the Drew Barrymore show saying this is a totally new style of Scream film. This is a totally new idea for a Scream film. This is a totally new way of telling a story in the Scream universe, which I was pretty pumped about. There's nothing new about this movie. I've seen everything in this movie in another Scream film before, up to and including the plot is, and also spoilers, but the plot is the plot of Scream 4. The plot is the plot of Scream 4 without the logic of it being Jill raised in a world where she's so angry about her cousin taking it away from her. Every beat that happens in this movie, and not just the stuff that they're deliberately like, hey, wink, 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 we're doing what they did in Scream 1, is something from a previous Scream film. There's maybe like one or two exceptions, and the one or two exceptions really, they're not interesting, I think. The only interesting new thing in this movie is that the opening victim doesn't die. That was the only part of me was like, oh, okay, cool. We are doing something a bit different. From there on, I was pretty sure what was happening. I clocked the killers. I clocked the killers before the movie started. To be honest, it's on an episode of this podcast. I don't remember which one. When we talked about Jack Quaid was in it, I said Jack Quaid is one of the killers. I guarantee you 100%, without a doubt, Jack Quaid is one of the killers. There's no way he's in this movie not playing a cop and not a killer. It's the only two roles he could have because he doesn't fit the rest of the cast. You look at the poster and you're like, he doesn't fit those kids. He's either a killer or a cop. That's it.
Yeah.
He's like Adam Brody in the last one. He has to be.
It's funny because I remember you saying that, but yeah, and look, I kind of wish I had have put this in the stratosphere for for a prosperity. Is it prosperity? Posterity. I can't even get my words right.
Posterity.
Posterity. Because I had meant to predict my thoughts on the killers and put that on Twitter, so it was there before I saw the movie, so I could go, oh well, I was badly wrong, or I was way off, or I was close, or got half right, because I felt like even the teaser posters, which I will say I loved the marketing for this movie. I love it.
Great. Got me absolutely sucked in.
Yeah, I think they really pumped it up compared to Scream 4, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, that they want people to come see this movie, I guess, but they obviously had the right people to market it. But I loved everyone had an individual poster holding the Scream mask, or the Ghostface mask, I should say. But all of them had, obviously had a particular look that kind of, they look a little bit sus or whatever. But my gut feel right before before it started, even a couple of weeks out, just looking at stuff without spoilers. Yes, I'd seen a trailer. I don't know why, but I thought the same thing as you. As soon as I started to see a bit more Jack Quaid, I'm like, I feel like he's the love interest / killer. And I actually really thought Wes might be his accomplice. But then when it became apparent that it was Amber's house, I went, well, the other killer has to be Amber. Like, it makes no sense, and that'll be something I'll bring up later. But I don't know. See, the thing with Jack as well in this movie, or his character Richie, I kept thinking to myself, oh, he's a killer. And for me, there was a couple of things that he said or he did that made me feel, well, that's his excuse, or that's his reason because he's a killer. But then I'm like, no, it's a bit like the Billy Loomis thing. They're making it too obvious. So it can't be him. They'll do something else. And then, yeah, of course.
And I can just imagine as they were writing it, they're like, what no one would pick is if we play the boyfriend exactly like Billy Loomis. All the fans will be like, oh, that's just like Billy, but there's no way they'd do it again. So it must be someone else. And then it is that again. And they're also being like, we did it, when really what they did is they just made it pretty obvious, I think.
Without, I mean, you've seen it the once without, giving your full review. Like, I mean, what was your initial thought walking out? Now, there was one thing you did say, you were gutted, or you were
furious. I immediately, I sent you a video of me walking into the theater with the ticket, and I was filled with glee. And then the second the lights went up, I immediately messaged you and I just wrote fucking furious. The fury part of my review is directed. Dewey's entire story in this movie, from the second that Dewey's introduced to the second that he's pointlessly, ridiculously, completely unacceptably killed. They did Dewey so wrong. They did Dewey so wrong from start to finish, and they rewrote his character. That Dewey that I saw in Scream 5 is not the same character from the previous 4 Scream movies. Like him, some brief dot point examples. Him becoming an alcoholic and living in a trailer and being a grizzled old piece of crap. There's nothing in any of the last 4 movies that was there to show that whatsoever. In fact, the only way that version of Dewey makes sense is if Gale died. Yeah. That would be the only way it works. Yeah. And him leaving Gale in the middle of the night and saying, like a coward, I ran away, that wouldn't happen. If Kevin Williamson or Aaron Kruger wrote this, if Wes Craven was involved in any way, the second somebody pitched that, they would say, get fucked. That's not this character. Write a new character, because that's not him. And there is absolutely no way that, and I've seen people fight about this on the internet, and I don't want to be one of those bitchy people who's like, no fucking way. But no fucking way Amber kills Dewey. No fucking way. Especially not Amber, who's just been tapped in the chest 5 fucking times. I don't care if she's got a bulletproof vest on. You get tapped 5 times at close range with a gun. Ooh, you're getting up slow. And she's tiny. And Dewey's an absolute badass. who knows how to handle himself. Like it was an insult. It really was an insult, the way that they treated his character and the way that they killed his character and the way that they felt they had to kill his character. And then it over explained in the killer reveal why they had to kill the most despised of terms, a legacy character. Like that, all of that just, every time that Dewey was on screen and did something, I just shook my head. I was like, why are they doing this? There must be a third act reveal for Dewey that's going to make all this make sense. And there wasn't. They just killed him.
Yeah. After you'd said that, I probably had already seen it twice. And then again, that was another thing I was just sort of looking for on the third watch. And I somewhat agree with you. I'm probably not as furious. I was one that went into the movie kind of thinking they really need to have the balls to kill one of the three main characters off. And I sort of thought to myself, the most expendable is Dewey because he's had so many close shaves that kind of like, well.
But that's exactly why they shouldn't have killed him. I think everyone went in expecting Dewey to die. I didn't think Dewey was getting out of the movie. I didn't think they'd do him like this. Honestly, if you want to kill a quote unquote legacy character, the biggest shock, the character that was the least expected to die and would have had the biggest impact is kill Gale. That would have been absolutely shocking, unexpected. Man, it would have given Dewey somewhere to go because he was already a little bit vigilante in this movie. But imagine if he's avenging Gale, because her avenging him, like, she's already a bit of a cold-hearted, witch in a lot of the movies, and she's much less emotional than him. But if Dewey knows that one of these killers killed Gale, he will unleash hell. Yeah. And it would be amazing. It would be absolutely amazing watching him get
it's really it's really interesting. I mean, we can agree to disagree. I'm not even really disagreeing with you to a point. I definitely think some of what they wrote for Dewey wasn't great. And again, I'm sort of coming around to you, but I felt like at least with his death, it made logical sense to get. That's how Sydney and Gale sort of come together. I don't believe in this world unless the killings were happening in the city that Sydney lived in with Mark Kincaid and her kids, and it made logical sense. There's no reason she goes to Woodsboro. So I think some of the other stuff they did set up, I guess the plot device of him making the call to them and saying, don't come here and all that sort of stuff, it made perfect sense why they go there. But you're right. I think definitely some of the evolution of the Dewey character is probably not accurate. I would probably say, I don't think, maybe we shouldn't hang on the moment too long, but I definitely think, you're right. I think him leaving in the middle of the night, and I don't know, it just feels like, this every movie that they have a falling out because of her.
Well, that's it. That's what I mean when I say I've seen it before. Like the Dewey Gale breakup has happened before multiple times in movies. Why can't you just have them together and be happy? What would be so hard about that? Like, if you could still kill Dewey if you really have to. I'd rather you didn't. But his life doesn't have to be ruined. Because I would get it if they couldn't get Courtney Cox for this movie, if they needed a way to have Dewey but not Gale.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, Dewey left her or she left him and break them up and he's really sad about it. Totally makes sense. But Courtney Cox is in this friggin' movie. You don't have to have Gale and Dewey broken up. That just felt unnecessary. It felt like the writers were like, no, we don't really like David Arquette or the character of Dewey, so let's burn him to the ground and kill him off really violently and horribly for no reason. You did touch on something, though, on a more positive note to try and swing this back around, something that I was overjoyed about, that we've talked about multiple times on this show, that we talked about with Patrick Lussier. She's married to Mark Kincaid. They finally addressed the fact that the only other person to survive a Scream movie, except for Joel, the cameraman, is Mark Kincaid from Scream 3, who never comes back in 4, who's never mentioned again. They finally acknowledged what happened and they got married and they had kids. And that's awesome. I thought that was so great. I was so happy. Like, oh my God, somebody watched the movies and was like, it's so weird. They kind of have a thing and then he's just not there anymore. Yeah. Brilliant. Loved it.
Which is a funny story. I don't know if you know the story, but apparently as soon as that got mentioned, as soon as the movie debuted, or there was one of the previous screenings, one of the interviews with Nev was about Mark, and she didn't even put 2 and 2 together. She just read the line and didn't even click that it was Mark from Scream 3. And they're like, "Is that Mark Kincaid?" And she's like, "Oh, well, yeah, I didn't even know until someone else pointed it out." So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that is very funny. On the same note, but on a more sour version, I don't know if I thought I saw it in the movie. I was like, what the fuck was that? Was that what I thought? And then I went and immediately checked it out afterwards. When Richie is watching YouTube clips, there's
Yes.
a thumbnail in one of the videos. Kirby is alive.
Yes. Yep.
Kirby is canonically alive in the Scream universe, which again, I was like, oh my God, that's great. Kirby's alive. Like they paid attention to the fact that she could be alive. Then they didn't put her in the movie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Well,
come on, man.
well, I've yeah. Look, I definitely read the odd article here or there, more about the Easter eggs and stuff like that that are in this movie. Not too much of whether the positive or negative reviews or anything. Not because I didn't want to spoil myself too much for this. But one of the other thumbnails that you may not have seen that's almost really hard to see is, I think, the fifth one down from Kirby is actually. Is the videos is the real Stu Marker still alive or something like that, or did he live? So, and and that's the one thing I think is funny about this fan base at the moment is the argument about whether he's alive or not. And everyone's on this bandwagon. He's alive, because Matt Lillard's obviously come out saying he's interested in coming back, and then because. I think people are confusing the fact that they're saying, well, he has to be alive because they're thinking about it, but also, because technically Kevin Williamson had him written alive for the third one. But it's like, like you said the word before, canonically, he's not alive. It's not a movie yet. The third movie never happened. So while Kevin and Wes back then maybe thought, we'll have him alive, as we speak, he's not alive. And I just think, I do love Matthew Lillard, and unless there was a really good way of doing it, and I think we talked about this in the Scream 3 episode, I just don't understand. For me, he's very much dead, and I just don't think, I think when I think of Scream in the franchise, when you put in the horror movies in that genre, some of these movies are ridiculous over the top, but like, whether it's Jason or, Michael Myers and all these almost supernatural humans that seem to survive. There's no way they could survive a decapitation, but they somehow do. But we go, okay, we just go with that. That's that character. That's what this world is like. I always think Scream at least does things a little bit better and feels a little bit more realistic. And we just give them a little bit of leeway with, obviously, the Amber as Ghostface or whatever. They're a little bit more superhuman, or they can take a couple of bullets and somehow survive it a bit or whatever. Or they can take a big fall and they can sort of bounce back. But having Stu survive what happened to him, I think is very far-fetched, and I think personally I wouldn't believe it. But then if you want to go that far, the problem is Gail, Dewey, and Sydney would know that he was alive. Like, you can't say, and I feel like that's never been mentioned. And if he broke out of his mental asylum or his prison, or however he does the killings or how he's involved, you can't have 4 other movies where he's never mentioned as being alive or could it be Stu? He's still alive. But remember, he's in jail. Like, he could be involved. Like, you can't then have a 6th movie with him coming back.
I think the moment has passed. I think if they had have done it in Scream 3, you could have stretched the limits of plausibility a bit. Yeah. We're talking early days of internet. There's not really that much internet going on in Scream 1 or Scream 2. We're talking about early days of, people knowing everything about everything all the time. And we're also talking after Scream 2, there's only one Stab movie. So the Stab fandom isn't the thing that it is in Scream 3 and Scream 4 and Scream 5. But there's no way that now, after what 3, 4, and 5 are, that the fans who are so insane that they've reached the point where they're trying to kill the people who the movies are based on to reset the timeline because they're so angry about the movies. There's no way that these fans would not have discovered A, that Stu's alive, B, where Stu is, and C, been posting the hell out of it online, and that Sydney wouldn't have found out and then gone, oh my God, it is too far-fetched. So I think, yes, if the original version of Scream 3 had Stu in it, you could have been like, I'm sure, like, you can find a way to, like, if Kevin Williamson wrote it especially, he would have found a way to make it work and be like, oh shit, that's a hell of a twist. I didn't see that coming. But now, 25 years later, no, it's too late. He can't possibly be alive for 25 years and Sydney doesn't know. That's insane.
Yeah. And I think, I think they've probably, like I said, we've moved too far past it. We've used his house, reused his house for this 5th one, I think. And then,
that is something
I guess the segue too from that is that Billy came back, and
Yes,
I think
Billy Loomis is
Oh,
back.
actually, before we jump to Billy, and the thing about Stu, like Matthew Lillard has obviously expressed a desire to be a part of the franchise again. How serious that is, I don't know. What he thinks he's going to do in the role, or what he's going to, be able to do. Whether he's going to play the
Well,
same
you know what
character.
would be good?
What?
Matthew Lillard is old enough now that he could, with a little bit of makeup, conceivably play Stu Marker's dad. We've never seen the Marker parents. He could be Stu Marker's dad. He'd come in, Sydney could see him and freak out and be like, oh my God, you could have a whole thing about how much he looks like his son. And then he could be a massive suspect for the movie because it's like, oh yeah, this is, Billy's mum came hunting. Now Stu's dad's coming hunting. And he could be a big red herring. And he could, you could make him a really big, important character who doesn't turn out to be a killer. Please God, don't repeat that storyline as well. But you could bring him in as a different character and just highlight the fact that, holy shit, you look exactly like your son. You could do something there.
Yeah, well, I mean, Scream 6 could totally rejig the whole, franchise by doing something completely different. But one of the great aspects of Scream is the whodunit. Now, if Matthew Lillard came back, well, they would have to keep it so top secret because as soon as he's listed and involved in the movie, you have to assume that he's potentially one of the killers. So doesn't that?
But I think that could work for them. Like that could actually something like, oh, he's back and he's gonna. But you just don't announce what character he's playing. It's like, oh, Matthew Lillard's in Scream 6. I mean, like, how the hell is Stu back? And the whole thing could be like, yeah, Matthew Lillard's in it. And they're like, oh my God, Stu's the killer again. And then he's not actually playing Stu. He's playing someone else.
Well, I was going to say, with prosthetics and stuff these days are so good. I mean, you play a completely different character. You like you said.
And he looks like an, I mean, he's in his late 40s now. He's not a kid. He could easily, with a little bit of makeup and costume, be made to look old enough to be the father of someone who would be, how old's the Sydney and Gail characters? Are they meant to be in their early 40s now? I think. I mean, Gail's probably meant to be in her 50s now.
Well, if Nev was supposed to be about 18 in 25 years ago, what's that? 25, 35, 43-ish, 44. There's
going to be so many listeners angry that we can't do basic maths. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah. Again, that's another great segue because basic math is one of the things that I have noticed that did blow up on the internet in regards to this film was the age of Sam Carpenter and that it was not conceivable that Billy could be her father because the amount of years. A lot of people have kind of argued, and for people like, nah, it's too long because 25, she's only 23, 25 years since. The timeline's a little bit, is it out? But it's like some people go, no, you could probably, it would be borderline close, but it could be done. But then you can kind of even can say, well, the movie's come out at the start of 2022, but was probably because of COVID, which should have been come out or potentially almost a year ago. It was finished a long time ago, or at least 6 months ago. So it would have brought the timeline in a little bit closer. So it would have been exactly, well, like, yeah, it's been 25 years, right? Practically, but they're sort of saying, well, Sam, I think someone worked out that so Billy must have almost knocked up Sam's mum a day or two before he died.
Yeah.
Give it the 9 months. And then she's born, but she's 23, but she's almost 24. That's the way you can sort of really, but even then, like, I don't know if they really thought out, like, really needed to do their maths a little bit. They would just make sure, or again, like, mate, it's obviously written so far in advance and then things got pushed back that you kind of go, well, maybe this movie's not 2022, maybe it's more like 2020 that it's set in and then everything sort of works perfectly. But it's, I just thought that is something. Yeah,
that is something that it is a huge part of the film that we obviously talk about. So if you saw it a while ago and you've forgotten, or if you haven't seen it for some reason and you're still listening, the big plot reveal, I suppose, and the big tie-in for this movie is that Billy Loomis, at the same time he was dating Sydney, was rooting some other woman, got her pregnant. She had a daughter. That daughter is the lead character in this. And Billy Loomis is in this movie because she suffers from some sort of psychosis which results in her seeing her dead dad Billy Loomis as he was in Scream 1 with some pretty decent CGI de-aging of Skeet Ulrich. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I was going to say, I felt like it was weird. Like, I know they de-aged him, but I still think he looked old as fuck, or he just didn't.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds horrible, but I just felt like he just didn't look like Billy in 1996. So
no,
it
which is frustrating because they can do it because the Marvel movies do it all the time. You're like, holy crap, that looks like Robert Downey Jr. when he was in Less Than Zero. Like, you can look at actors in movies now and be like, wow, they did it. And in this one, I mean, they don't have Marvel's budget, so.
Well, they didn't, but can't they get? There's a guy that's really. I'm sure you're the one that told me this story, but the guy that was really good at the fake, what do they call them? Deep fakes.
Deep fakes.
He got a job at Lucasfilm / Disney.
Yeah,
he was so good. He was doing
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, and he
gave him a job.
But I think he was doing deep fakes for the Star Wars movies that Disney had done. He was doing them better than them.
Yes,
so then they're like,
they hired him.
Yeah, so I just saw episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, and I won't use a spoiler, but let's just say there's a person in that it was so like you believe in most of the scenes. It was that person from 40 years ago.
Well, I mean, we saw it,
and so it can be done. Like,
we saw it not de-aged, but we saw it recently in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Harold Ramis is in that fucking movie. Like, my brain was struggling to hold on to reality because it was watching the screen going, Harold Ramis is dead, but the other half of my brain was going, that's Harold Ramis on screen in this movie. Like, it was very believable. So it can be done if you put in the effort. What did you think of the storyline that Billy Loomis had a secret daughter and that daughter is the main character and she sees Billy Loomis in visions, and so Billy Loomis is back in a Scream movie 25 years later?
I didn't hate it because I think it was different, and it was all that was stuff that Dewey told us about, like, took us back to the original, something that was maybe you didn't know from the get-go, or something that ties it all back to the original. I didn't hate it, but again, in my head, I was straight away when it got revealed, I sort of felt like I knew maybe that was going to be the case, and then, like I said, I was doing the math, 25 years, but she's 23. I was doing that in my head. And I know that's been a debate, like I said, online for a while, the last couple of weeks since the movie dropped. I was also spoiled by that. And what I mean by that, I don't know if we've had this conversation, there was famously, so I didn't know in what aspect Billy was going to be in the movie. I actually thought Randy, so I thought Jamie Kennedy, Matthew Lillard and Skeet might have been back for flashbacks of the final scene, because I knew they were doing stuff in Stu's house, and I'm like, well, why would they be there? What's the meaning? How are they there? And someone, and this is obviously going back a while ago in production, there was someone, I can't remember which what actor posted, but someone did an Instagram story, and they're at the beach on a day where they'd finished filming for the day or whatever, and they'd gone down to the beach, and obviously Wes was there, most of the characters, and then Martha Meeks was there, and Skeet was there, and so they'd all been tagged, and fans picked up on Australia like, what the fuck, Skeet? So someone at Paramount must have seen it and gone, what the fuck, get rid of that, and that story disappeared real quick.
Yeah, and then I think from memory, the internet will prove me wrong, but I think it was Jack Quaid who did that. I think Jack Quaid put up that Instagram story. Right.
Okay. So, but then of course, once it's committed and someone screenshots it and whatever, and it goes. Nothing's
gone.
And I feel like there might have even been a post as well. Maybe not. Was it a story or not? I'm gonna have to research. I wish I had before I opened my mouth, but there was definitely a point where Skeet was tagged in something, and then his tag was removed and all the post was removed. So immediately, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, he's in the film at some point for some reason, and not sure why. So I wasn't spoiled on how and why, but I had a feeling there was going to be some sort of flashback, or he was involved somehow. So when I saw it, it didn't super surprise me as well, because I feel like the trailers, or one of the trailers I saw just before the movie dropped, kind of hinted at a family secret. So it was kind of, yeah.
Yeah, look, I thought it was at least it was something new. So when it happened, I was like, oh, okay, shit. Like she's seeing visions of Billy Lim. And at first I thought, okay, this is a fun new thing that is happening. But as it went on, I got irked by it a little bit and got pretty frustrated with it in the final set piece with the killer reveal and the killings, is because he went from being like a vision she was having, when she didn't take enough medication or when she was overly stressed, to essentially being a ghost, to being someone who knew information she didn't. So at the end, when she's struggling against Richie and she's reaching to try and find a weapon, Billy shows her that there's a knife behind the curtain.
Make a scary phone call to me? Pop out of that closet in a Ghostface mask? No. Because you're the villain.
Now he's just a projection from her psychosis, so he can't have information she doesn't have. So how the fuck is he telling her that there's a knife behind the curtain unless he's just a bona fide ghost now? Unless Ghostface is an actual ghost and we've jumped the shark on that whole thing. So that was the only part of that storyline where I was like, come the fuck on. Like, why can't she see the knife on her own? And why can't him in that moment be like just him really egging her on to unleash her inner psycho? Which I thought that was, when she unleashed her inner psycho, that was pretty fun. That was a nice, difference to the very cool, calm, collected way that Gail and Sydney have been shooting guys in the head for 25 years, not really being bothered by it at all, which is always surprising. It's like, you're just normal people who are shooting people in the head and you don't seem flustered. At least Sam, like, killing someone seemed to have an effect on her one way or the other. That was pretty cool. But I thought that the idea of making, I could see very badly they want to make more of these movies, and they know that they're going to be lucky to keep getting Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox and, well, previously David Arquette. They're going to be lucky to keep getting those characters in, and I don't think that the studios have the faith that they can carry the Scream movies anymore the way that say Jamie Lee Curtis is carrying the Halloween movies now. I think they feel like there has to be a period where the story goes somewhere else, and then maybe when Scream gets another 50 years down the track, they'll bring Nev Campbell back as an old grandma and she'll get another shot. But in doing that, in forcing the story to move to other characters that aren't Sydney, it feels like they were desperate to try and keep that familiar connection going, because that's what Scream is. And we've talked about this before. Every other horror movie franchise, it's the killer somehow isn't dead from the last movie and they're back and they're unstoppable. And the actual victims don't mean shit. No one cares about the victims. You're just killing a bunch of people and the killer goes on. But with Scream, it's all about Sydney and Dewey and Gail, and it's about Sydney's connection. It's about her mum and her boyfriend. It's about her boyfriend's mum. It's about her brother. It's about her cousin. Like, the Scream movies are essentially Sydney's family trying to murder her in costume. So to spiral off to other characters is very jarring to begin with. And I can understand why they wanted to make it still about family in the same way that the previous 4 Scream movies were. I honestly, I don't know how much Scream movie you've got if the movies aren't about Sidney Prescott. I really don't know why you tell stories in a Scream universe if you're not telling them about Sidney Prescott, because all you're doing is every movie now, you're going to have new victims, new killers. But why? Like, what's the carry on? Like, obviously they're going to make Scream 6. This movie made a butt ton of money, got great press. Everyone, in it raved about being in it. Everyone who's reviewed it raves about the reviewing it. There's very stupid quotes that are being swung around, like better than the original and dumb shit like that. But this movie is getting a sequel, undoubtedly. It is absolutely getting a sequel.
But isn't that,
where do you go?
Isn't that kind of, I will find it hard not seeing a Scream movie without Gail and now Sydney. But they clearly set this one up, like I said, like to carry on the Ghostface tradition, but move it somewhere else, so we can cram out some movies and make them semi-realistic, where it's not always going to be about Sydney surviving 17 movies.
Yeah.
there's a part where, yeah, I agree with you. It is very, the Scream franchise is very much about Sydney Prescott and her life and her, people around her. But at some point you go, well, we want to keep making these movies. We got to get Nev coming back, or recast her, or we just have to find another avenue. And I think that was the way to do it, is like, oh, hey, now we've got the kind of crazy thought of, we've got Billy Loomis's daughter, who's, is she the victim, or is she going to be the final girl, or is she going to be the killer, or could she become the killer in the next movie? Or who knows? But I feel like they definitely set it up, like you said, to churn out a few more movies with no pressure on Sydney, or sorry, I should say Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox at this point.
Well, talking about that, what did you feel about the fact that not just Sam Carpenter, which I will give credit there, is pretty fun, because she makes a point of every time someone calls her Samantha, she says it's Sam, which means people call her Sam Carpenter, but that means that her name technically should be Sam Loomis, which is the name of Donald Pleasance's character in Halloween, and also the character from Psycho. So I like that, and they changed it from Loomis to Carpenter, which is the name of John Carpenter, who directed Halloween. I like all that. I think that's really putting their cards on the table and being like, we love
Which is
this,
funny.
we know this.
I did see a funny thing in the group, because the one other thing that you talked about Kirby before, and I think if they could have had Kirby, or what's in it? Hayden Panettiere. If they could have had her, I'm sure if they could find a really cool way to have her in the movie, they would have. But I think they're probably smart. Like, let's not try and put every Easter egg in here, and let's have, make sure it's important to be in there. And I think the same thing happened with their actual mum. So Christina is Sam and Tara's mum.
Yeah.
And I think from what I've read in a few little interviews, they were hoping to have a bit more about her, or at least maybe we see her initially, but then that was like, wow, it's not needed. We can, and I think that's another thing that might be a hook for the next movie potentially. But I did see a funny thing, and maybe I'm dragging this out a bit too long, within a group, and people are like, oh, who could play her? And then everyone's listening, all these sort of Latino kind of, South American looking women in film. And then someone did say, come on, it has to be Charisma Carpenter. Come on. And I thought that was pretty funny, because I'm like, well, there's your Buffy reference as well. And then, she's been in a few movies. And I just thought that was a funny Charisma Carpenter. Yeah, it kind of has to be Charisma Carpenter, surely.
Yeah, chuck her in. What did you think about the fact that, apart from Sam, everyone in this movie is related to someone from Scream 1? Everyone is either Randy's nephew, or Stu Marker's cousin or nephew, or is... So who else was related to? Oh, well, Wes is the son of Judy from the previous, like all the core group of friends, with the exception of Amber, who lives in Stu Marker's house, is somehow related to a character from the first movie. Did you enjoy that, or did that start to be like, doesn't anyone else live in this town?
I was actually thinking the town got very diverse in 25 years.
Oh, I love the casting.
Yeah.
I love the cast. I love that finally in a Scream movie, it's not just a bunch of white kids, Midwest white kids. I love that finally in a Scream movie, there is a not suggested or hinted at, or maybe queer character. There's a character that is actually a queer character, and it's not a big deal. It's just they are. But they're not like, oh, maybe Stu was gay. Maybe that's why he did it, because maybe Stu was gay, or maybe Mickey was secretly gay. We think Mickey was gay. Like there's so many hints throughout the Scream movies after the fact. They're like, oh, maybe that character was gay. I love finally they're just like, yeah, she's gonna kiss that girl later, and it's a very funny scene. It's a very funny moment. She's like, I'm gonna watch this movie, smoke this bowl, and maybe I'll make out with Francis later. I was like, that's a great moment. I love that. Thank you. And I love that there's not white kids everywhere in this movie. That was a great thing.
Well, it's funny, because I got a bit confused, because I know in the world we live in now that I think they're trying to, show a bit of everything, and people would say, oh, it's too woke, and, a lot of stuff that we're seeing now. But I had no issues. I did like the diversity. I like it. Didn't feel just tokenistic, because I think some of the people that they brought on were actually very good in what they do. So Melissa Barrera's done some great stuff. Jenna Ortega's done some good stuff. Jasmine Savoy Brown, which was Mindy, she's done some great stuff. So they brought in some really good actors to do the job. So it wasn't just, oh, well, we've got to give it to them because we need a bit of diversity or whatever. The one thing I was thinking, I thought there was something supposed to be happening with Tara and Amber. I don't know why, but I misread that initially because I thought they were like a couple or kind of girlfriends, but not, And then there was a kind of hint of Wes kind of checking in, and he's kind of the guy that's into her as well. And I was like, and then in the second view, I'm like, oh, I totally misread that. I thought kind of Amber and Tara were kind of the couple,
Well,
and I had no issue with it. But
I think that was. I don't think you were wrong in seeing that. I think what happened there was a confusion in either writing, direction, or performance. But what I saw was someone who is very clearly the killer from the moment that they enter the film. It more obvious than Jack. Like if Richie was played by an actor that wasn't Jack Quaid, Richie would have been a less obvious killer. But it's just that Jack Quaid doesn't fit that cast as anything other than a cop or a killer, and that's not his fault. I think he's brilliant in this movie. I think he's probably the best actor in this movie after the original 3 cast members who return. Because they obviously know these parts inside out and crush. I think he's the best new character in terms of acting. I just think it's just a point of fact that when you look at the poster, he just doesn't fit this cast as anything other than a cop or a killer. But I think that Amber is very clearly the killer in every single scene that she's in. And I think what either the actor or the writer, the director thought was going on is that, we'll sell it as she's really protective and obsessive about her friend. And that makes her seem a bit creepy, but she just really loves her friend. But what I got when I saw it is, she's the killer. She's insane. Look at her. In every time she's on the screen, she's acting insane. She's definitely going to murder everyone at the end of the movie. There's no doubt in my mind. So at the end, great line, when she shoots I've forgotten her name, the very annoying girlfriend in the head, and says, welcome, Liv, and says, welcome to Act 3, bitch. I was like, cool moment. No surprise. Absolutely no surprise.
Yeah. Well, you're a bit better than me. I wasn't too sure. I felt like they definitely were trying to paint her as the red herring, but I sort of wasn't too sure.
Well, I definitely
on the second,
but I had hopes.
Yeah, on the second viewing, you definitely can see it. Like there's definitely, again, it's like all these movies you can go back, and I feel like there's definitely a lot of stuff in there that sort of points her way.
Talking about like the reveal of the killers and how we find out, who the 2 killers definitely are. Can I pitch you what I thought was going to happen and what I wish had happened with the killers in this movie? And it starts with Dewey's death. And this is where the movie started to veer from, I think, all the possibilities. What I would love to see, and I know I'm just someone who watched it and I didn't write it, so what the fuck do I know? But this is what I think would have worked really well. Dewey, in the elevator, you got to shoot him in the head. Great moment, great line, goes back. They try to jump. He shoots him in the head. He kills one of the killers. In the middle of the movie, he shoots one of the killers dead. And then he gets a call from Gail, like he did. He answers it. He's like, I got them. I killed them. I shot him in the head. She's like, oh my God, who is it? And then he turns around and he's about to pull off the mask. And then you hear Gail be like, who is it? And he's like, I'm checking. She's like, no, there's someone here. And it cuts to Gail. And there's another Ghostface there. And that Ghostface kills Gail. And that's fucking terrifying and surprising because you think that Dewey's about to die. And then Dewey's freaking out. And then as Dewey is running to the elevator opens. There is another Ghostface. And this Ghostface shoots Dewey. Dewey goes down. He doesn't die, but he goes down because if you shoot him, then later he gets to have a little line where Nev Campbell, Sydney comes and he goes, hey, at least I didn't get stabbed this time. And that would be pretty funny. But now Gail's dead. We know there's 3 killers. Dewey doesn't get a chance to unmask the one he killed because the 3rd killer takes that body away. So we know there's at least 2 Ghostface left. At the end of the movie, when everyone's around, they're all yelling, and Amber shoots Liv in the head. Instead of Liv shooting in the head, we find out that the killers all of her fucking friends. It's not 2 killers or 3 killers. It's all her fucking friends are killers, and everyone is trying to fuck her up. So now Tara and Sam like, holy shit, everyone's trying to kill us. The original characters come in. They kill a couple of them. They catch one of them. They kill him. And then they realize that there's another Ghostface that isn't part of the friend group. They have no idea who it is. And they don't fucking kill them. And they don't fucking catch them. And the movie ends with you knowing there's a Ghostface killer out there that no one knows who they are. And they're still going, which means when you inevitably make Scream 6, you do something truly and honestly different from the Scream movies. You have a return killer. It's the only thing they haven't done. And this is the opportunity to do it. And that would have made that final scene really good. Because when they're all arguing right before Amber shoots in the head, I was like, oh my God, I think all the friends are going to be the killers. I think maybe I was wrong. And then she shoots in the head. I'm like, no, I was right. That's my pitch for what Scream 5 could have been.
Well, and that's
what
just crazy
Scream 5
because,
is.
I mean, that was potentially what Scream 4 was supposed to do, was Jill was supposed to live.
Yes.
And we would have a killer that like goes on, and that would have been something different again. Maybe you're right. I think, I don't know.
Look, I know this is just pontificating at this point, but that was what I couldn't help thinking, even as the movie was playing out, that there is a better version of this movie that could have happened, and it's right there for the taking. It would only take a couple of tiny tweaks. And in an industry where, I mean, horror movies have always gotten sequels, and sequels have always been big business, but at the moment, everything is franchise. Everything is IP. They don't want new horror. That's why we're getting more Halloweens now. That's why we're getting more Screams now. That's why they're making another Final Destination movie. That's why they're making another Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Like, this is all happening because IP is the big thing. And the Scream movie's central thing is the killers die at the end. So what do? Well, now if you have a new heroine that's not Sydney, why not have a new ending? Why not have a killer survive and you don't know who it is? Like, that would make for, I think, a fascinating, terrifying a Scream 6, because now Sam's out in the world. You don't have to have that awkward half hour at the start of a Scream movie where the killings start again and people aren't quite sure, is it really happening again? Who could it be? I don't think it's happening again. And then finally everyone's like, oh my God, it's happening again. No, Sam can start the movie with Tara and be like, it's fucking happening again because the killer isn't dead. And she's trying to convince people that there's another killer. But because there's so many people who were killers who are dead, they're like, you're just paranoid. So you could still have the whole thing where she's on her own. I don't know. This is what's been running in my head since I saw the movies. Like, why?
Well, you can
why
almost
did you kill both the killers again?
Well, you could almost do similar to a Friday the 13th Part 2. You could almost have it where the opening scene of the next movie could be almost a couple of minutes after the end of Scream 5.
Yeah.
Where he stops the ambulance. The ambulance stops, and then Sam and they're, why are you stopped? It's like, oh, there's some guy on the road, and you look out and there's, set up, well, there's a Ghostface, and that's the third killer or something like that. I agree with you. I mean, look, I don't want to kick the movie too much, but I do feel like look, it was great. They did the opening scene, and I really thought she was going to die, and then obviously she's the bait to get Sam to Woodsboro and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool that they played on this whole Casey Becker type scene, but she survives it. So they did something different. But you're right. I think it would have been really cool to have the two killer reveal. They both cop it, but then someone says, but hang on, that makes no sense because one of the attacks happened when they were both with us or something like that.
Yeah.
And you go, there has to be a third killer. And then you go, and then that'll be the thing hanging for the next movie. It's like, well, who is the third killer? And
and make it someone truly,
because we've never had the three killers. So, which I thought was always interesting because
if you wanted to keep Kirby alive in the universe and didn't want to bring it back in 5, but maybe want to bring it back in 6, like maybe Kirby is the mastermind, and maybe the whole thing is like all my friends betrayed me and I got like friggin' stabbed and left for dead. Like now I can't trust. Like why does anyone? That would mess a person up. That would be like we saw Dewey get stabbed 9 times, as he tells us a bunch in the movie, and he just comes back stronger and more committed to helping his friends. What if Kirby gets stabbed by her friends and left for dead and is like, you know what? Fuck everyone. And she flipped and she comes back and she's puppeteering. Like that would have been cool. That would have been cool. The toxic fandom thing, I think.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
I think that really clanged as a reveal on its own. If there was another element to it, you know, like again, going back to Scream 1, but when Billy is revealing that him and Stu are the killers and that they killed Sydney's mum, and Sydney's like, why? And he's like, why? Like, it's scary when there's no motive, you know? Did they decide why Hannibal Lecter eats people? No. You know, and they go through the reasons. Why does Norman Bates kill? Like, no. And then after that, he's like, well, how's this for a motive? You know, your slut mother was fucking my father. And you can see, she's like, what? And you can see Stu is like, fucking what? What's this now? That there was another element to it. And it was like, oh shit, this is layers of crazy. Like Stu's just crazy, but Billy's crazy and has a purpose. But for Amber and Richie to both just be crazy and just crazy fans, for there to be no other layer to it, it just felt very, again, like every Scream movie, there is a reason for the killer to come after Sydney. There is a reason, as twisted and as messed up as the killers are. I'm not defending serial killers, but they have, from a plot point, they have a reason to do it. And when the reason is revealed, like it's not so much the who done it, but also the why did that we get. And we didn't get a why did in this movie. We got, I'm angry about Stab 8, which is a thinly veiled reference that I'm angry about
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi. Down to the point that Stab 8 was directed by Rian Johnson. Like they really didn't cover that at all. And that's it. Like I get it. I get it that toxic fandom is an issue. I get that fanboys online are fucking annoying and have caused genuine real world harm to people and actors in movies. And I get that all of that is awful. But I think as essentially a silly slasher movie, like if you want to make a serious drama, okay, that would have been a reveal was like, oh shit. But that's not what this universe is. This universe is not a serious drama. So give us something else. Give us a Scream reason. What did you think? What did you think about the reveal?
I know that's another thing I've noticed online. A few people have been disappointed with. They thought the motive was a bit weak. Still, that toxic fandom. But then people still in these Facebook Scream groups get really on their high horse and get to the point where it's just
you and I are both in a lot of these online Facebook groups. And if anyone listening isn't, if you want to just like surf in and out for a minute and just check it out, like for people talking about not just movies in general, but people talking about like one movie, people get insane. It's really crazy.
I know it is crazy, but look, I try and respect everyone's view. People don't have to like the movie. I enjoyed it. I'm not as negative as some people have been, but some people just get so negative, and it's like, gets to a point. It's like, are they just trolling? Are they just doing it just to get a rise out of people, or they honestly hate the movie so much?
I think some people genuinely are like real life Richies. I think they're so angry that this movie isn't what they wanted it to be, that they feel personally attacked and offended by it because the movies are so personal to them, and you know any transgression is going to be taken.
I don't want to deviate too far, but again, I'll start that again. I wouldn't consider myself toxic, but I even sometimes don't even know what that really means. I think there's people out there that just will complain about anything, rain, hail, or shine, whether it's a movie or not, or the way you put your bins out and they're not in the right spot for your bins out the night, or they complain
that
about.
Feels oddly specific. I feel like someone's gotten angry.
Well, no, but you know what I mean? There's people that just anal about everything, and then they come in and
absolutely.
No, well, I like you to put my sugar in before you pour the coffee, or like just people that just will be negative about every little thing. And I like, there's probably some of those out there, but I feel like it's funny because it's almost like this life imitating art, because they reference Stab 8, and which is definitely a veiled attack on definitely Star Wars fans with Episode 8,
Absolutely.
The Last Jedi. And I will say, I honestly can tell you, I hated that movie so much, and I wasn't jumping up and down saying it spoiled you ruined my childhood. I'm not that obsessive, but I was actually. It was the first time I was like, I walked out like, I've always defended some of the other Star Wars movies, even though they haven't been great. When other mates of mine go, fucking shit, all that, and they just don't even give it a chance. I'm pretty laid back, and we're doing a podcast about sequels where I think, are pretty forgiving in a lot of ways, and give a lot of love to movies that probably don't get a lot of love. But for me, my first episode of Sequel Suck was The Last Jedi. And I remember I've never written a blog before. I've never done anything really super online about writing criticisms of movies. And that movie, when I saw it, I was just so taken aback and so like dumbfounded at what I just saw. And like, how was that even a Star Wars movie? And then I went and saw it again. And then I was like, oh my God, this movie is so bad. This is not the Star Wars I grew up with. And it just felt like it was a completely different take on Star Wars. It was almost like an artistic way. But mind you, I know some people that are big Star Wars fans like me that loved it. So I'm glad they loved it. But for me personally, I hated The Last Jedi. It actually, to the point of not even, not even angry, it just broke my heart because it was like, there's this character called Luke Skywalker. And I know they're not canon anymore, but I read books that are set after Return of the Jedi. And you have this evolution of that character. And then, okay, Disney reset all that. They make it, but then they make this grizzled old man and just change who he was. And I'm sorry. I just think there's so many other things they could have done. And for me, it was the first time I got so annoyed and so disappointed that I actually wrote a big kind of blog thing. I never posted it, but I spent one holiday just writing this blog because I was so taken aback. But does that make me toxic? No, I don't know. Again, I don't know. I'd like to know. I want to hear your definition in 2 seconds, but I will say that the one thing that I did not like when people hated The Last Jedi, like some really good fans did some really good review YouTube videos and stuff where they were quite measured and logical about why they didn't like the movie and the issues they had with it. I understand that, but I think it's more the toxic is the people that go out and attack the actors that were in the movie for ruining their childhood. And I'm like, I don't understand
for trying to kill Kelly Marie Tran because they didn't like Rose.
And well, again, she was a shit character. Well, this is the other problem with that movie. There's actually a lot of the characters are really badly written in that 8th movie, and people can argue to the hill, but I will die on the hill that a lot of their characters are written badly, and it's not those actors' fault. It's the script, the directing, whatever it is. And people, don't worry, I'll be talking for it too long because we go back to episode 1 of Sequels Suck to listen to me and I think Ben Waterworth were talking about it back then before you're on board, Angus. But it's just one of those things that it's sad, but I think maybe toxic's always been around. It's a newer thing because social media and there's so much more access. People can have a voice and there's more of us now and people can say what they want and,
absolutely.
People don't have that.
Well, I think I got 2 points to make to that. One, I think a clear example of how your disappointment and outrage to episode 8 isn't toxic is you didn't post the blog. But also I am also a Star Wars fan. I have Star Wars tattoos. I love Star Wars, and episode 8 is my equal favorite Star Wars movie, and we host a podcast together. I don't think someone who was a toxic fan would come anywhere near me if they were going to be violently murdering people. But I do like one of the points you raised about the casting and the acting and the problems with underwritten characters, because I think that swings us right back to Scream. I think all of the new characters in Scream 5 are terribly underwritten. I think they're terrible. I didn't care about any of them because I didn't know any of them. And I think that's a victim of you trying to introduce an entire new cast of characters in Sam and Tara and all the friendship group while still reintroducing Dewey and Gail and Sydney and Judy and Martha, and you're bringing all these characters back, and you also have a horror story in there, and you also have to have a killer killing people, and you also have to have people building the mystery, but you never get a chance to know. And like you said, like you didn't know if Amber and Tara were a couple. You didn't know if Wes and Tara, like you didn't know what was going with any of the dynamics. After I watched this movie, I went right back home and I watched the Scream 1, Wes Craven's Scream 1. From the get-go, you know that Sydney and Billy are dating. You know that Tatum and Stu are dating. You know that Dewey is Tatum's brother. You know all of them. You know Randy is the video store nerd. You know all of their characters. You know what kind of characters they are. You even know what kind of principal the principal is. In Scream 5, you really don't know anything about these characters other than they're related to characters from Scream 1. And so as they start getting picked off, like to the point where the violent ex-boyfriend of was his name Liv,
Yeah, like
who is the first official victim in the movie,
Vince, yeah.
Vince, who turns out later to be Stu's nephew. When he is introduced, I was so confused why he was there. I thought there must be a big reason he's there, and then he gets killed off, and I was like, I don't even know who this freaking guy is. So why do I care that he's dead? I knew more about Casey Becker than I knew about him.
Did you? So this is, I guess, the other interesting thing. Had you seen the trailer, or did you avoid the trailer?
No, I avoided the trailer.
Okay, so that was definitely, one of the ones that popped up in the trailer, and yeah, the speculation was, well, they're not going to show him so obviously getting killed, because I think you did in the trailer, you see him up against the wall pissing, and then you see the lights on, and then obviously a very truncated version of what you see, and then you see him sort of come up out of the car and the ghost face being right there, and then it cuts away to the next part of the trailer, so you don't see the stab. But that was the thing, it was like when people saw that, everyone just suspected that that was one of the first kills, which it turned out to be was officially the first kill, or it was part of Stab 8 or the movie within the movie, that he wasn't actually part of the actual thing. So I agree with you. When it turned out he was, it was kind of this weird. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm negative, but I did think, seeing it 3 times now, it's kind of weird. Like they introduce him, kind of looks like a red herring, potentially like the Billy Loomis bad guy kind of. And then he's dispensed so quickly and without so much of a fight or anything. And you kind of go, oh, okay, so that's red herring gone. And then what's his relevance? And in my first viewing, I didn't even hear the conversation to say that he was related to.
Oh, it's such a throwaway. It's such a throwaway. It really, and I think it's meant to be like the killer's killing off relatives of the original cast or something. But it's so like blink and you'll miss it that it's really easy for people to have no idea that guy's even connected that way. Do you think it was? Do you think I was going to ask you? Do you think it's deliberate that his facial hair really echoes Skeet Ulrich's facial hair on the poster of Scream?
Yeah,
he famously has that shitty goatee because they did the photos after they shot the movie and he had to grow the beard for another movie.
Yeah, I think so.
That felt on purpose to me.
Yeah, I think so too. But again, it's like maybe his death was supposed to, again, shock us and not expected, because my expectation would have been, they've got to keep him around a little bit longer just to be a bit of a red herring in the background. You see him, he pops up a couple of times, and he's messaging Liv, and Hobbs and Shaw are coming out tonight and all that sort of stuff. I mean,
I like that Red Right Hand was playing in the car.
Oh, that was
a nice
cool.
Little,
that was definitely really cool.
Oh shit, we're in a Scream movie. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And the kill, you talked about the kill, like the stab. I thought that was.
It was cool because it was different. It was.
This movie did different kills. I'll give it that. Like the kills were definitely more graphic, definitely more bloody. But also, there was some really strange, like killing Vince. Is that Amber or is that Richie? That's got to be Richie, doesn't it? Because Amber is in the bar with the friends. So it's got to be Richie that kills Vince. I'm pretty sure. In fact, I was reading about this. I think if you watch it, and because you've seen it more than me, you might be able to tell me if this is just internet bullshit or not. But because Amber is full crazy and like seems to really enjoy killing people, and Richie seems a bit more like methodical and a little more finicky about it, the Richie kills are the really like simple, like boop boop ones, and the violent, like I'm gonna rip you open ones, like Judy and Dewey and Wes are Amber, because it's her like really going to town.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk about the fact that Richie kills Vince because it's just stab out, gone, like get away from the blood.
Yeah. No, I hadn't heard that. But that probably lines up to, I'd have to agree with that. Because I'm just trying to think because Richie does attack Sam in the hospital, because there is an explanation, because Amber's actually at the police station being interviewed.
Yeah, when he's like, that's the scene where he's like, I was watching Netflix. Yeah, which is that is a good cover for the attack, because we see him watching Netflix and then he's back watching Netflix. Like that is a nice way of doing it. Have him there, have him be an obvious suspect, have the reason that he's not a suspect be pretty weak, but also kind of land. I thought that was a good moment.
But you're right. Like some of the kills, the Dewey one, even though I was expecting it, I think that was still hard to watch. That was definitely.
I hate
and
it.
it
Not just
reminded,
because he was.
It reminded me
done,
of.
I hated seeing him die.
It reminded me of Randy.
Yes.
You know, and even the way they showed his face at the end of it was very Randy-ish as well. That he was like dead, and you just saw his eyes open and.
It's an honor.
Yeah, I mean, how did you go with that? Because I reckon it was the most emotional I ever got in a Scream movie. Because I think,
I was gutted.
Yeah, wow, quite literally.
It felt, but it felt like, well, going back to Star Wars again, but it felt like Episode 7 of Star Wars when Han was killed, and it's watching this character that you've followed for so long of your life, who you know is probably going to cop it. You can feel it coming, but you just don't want to see it. You know, you don't want to see a character that is really beloved and important to you die, and be murdered in such a horrific way. And that's how I felt watching Dewey. It was like, I'm 99% sure they're going to kill him. The twist would be they don't kill him, and I really hope they don't. But I went into this movie prepared for him to die. But yeah, I got real sad watching that. I was just shaking my head. I was like, this. And even the little moment afterwards when they wheel him out in the body bag.
Gale,
every time they wheel him out, he's on the bed and he's miraculously alive and he gives us the thumbs up and he's okay. And you're like, oh my God, he made it. And this time they made a point of putting the body bag zipped up on the gurney. So I was like, no, this is it. This is the last time you're going to see him on a hospital trolley. He's gone. I found that really emotional because it made me flash back to Scream and to Scream 2, watching him get wheeled out on the gurney. And then they mirror that at the end with the twins, and they get wheeled out and they do the little thumbs up, and it's
I was just trying to like, it's hard to remember every little moment when especially when those movies 1, 2, and 3 are so long ago, but I can't remember like my heart beating so hard and almost like again for some, and which is weird because it was something I sort of somewhat predicted or thought was potentially going to happen. And you see Dewey almost have that hero moment, go, no, I remembered, I learned from the third movie, I've got to shoot him in the head, and he goes back. Yeah. And then it's kind of that cruel twist of fate that he gets distracted by Gale calling him.
Yeah.
And so inadvertently she's kind of
responsible,
but then.
But this is a man who's a trained police officer whose whole life has been pointing guns at things and keeping his cool. Man, come on. He just shot a serial killer and he's going back to tap him in the head. Is he really going to get distracted by a friggin' mobile phone? Like, he's trained for this his entire life.
Yeah, no, you probably get the job done.
Come on.
But phones can distract us, It happens to the best of us.
It's a good PSA for turning your phone off in the car. That's what it bloody is, kids. Look, if it can happen to Dewey, it can happen to you.
But yeah, so I remember, so that first showing, I sort of had the eyes rolled up just that little bit. And then it was more for me, it was bad enough to see him die. But then I was like, well, you know what? I think it gives this movie stakes that he's being killed, and it makes perfect sense. I guess I'm retreating over old stuff we just said, but to get Nev back and Gale was already there, but then it was like really emotional when Gale sees him and breaks down when she sees the gurney come out and he's the toe tags on there, and
that is a great line.
It got my heart pumping. It's like, oh my God, they've actually really killed him, and it's like, but that's what I will give them credit for, because I think that's the problem with the last couple of movies, because the legacy characters have survived. You kind of go, well, you're just killing people off we don't really know. We don't have an emotional connection to, and that's the problem with a lot of horror movies. Even the recent Alien movies, or Prometheus and Covenant, and all these movies that we've talked about, where they bring these characters, but you don't have an emotional connection, and you don't get to know them. So
no,
there's no stakes in when they die. You go, I don't care. He was kind of annoying.
Well, I
or
think we
didn't
spoke
know.
about this before. Like Scream 4 kind of missed the opportunity because in every Scream film, I mean, obviously in Scream 1, we don't know them, but through the movie, we get to know them, and then they start dying. And then Scream 2, they kill Randy. And in Scream 3, they kill Cotton Weary. And in Scream 4, they don't kill anyone we know. And that was, I was pretty nervous for Dewey that whole movie. I was like, are they going to kill Dewey? And they didn't. So it almost became, in this movie, became like, I know you're going to, and I know you want to, but you don't actually have to, because we've seen now that you can tell a Scream story and have these three people survive, and it can be. And I know the audiences be like, "Oh, come on, again, they're all alive." But honestly, yeah, again, they're all like. I would watch 100 more Scream movies where Gail and Sydney and Dewey survive, than one more Scream movie where I have to watch Gail or Dewey or Sydney die. Like, I don't. As a fan of the Scream movies, I don't want that. I get that it gives it quote unquote stakes, but I don't. The reward isn't worth the cost in my humble little sad Dewey loving opinion. I would rather him be alive in this movie and have less stakes, because, and again, I'm coming back to repeat myself, but the ending doesn't earn killing Dewey because there are no stakes, because the ultimate reveal is that there's no reason for these people to kill people other than they're just regular old crazy people. Like they're just run of the mill crazy people. Even friggin' Jason Voorhees has more of a fucking reason to kill people than these two. Like they don't have any want or need or desire to kill people. They just do. Like, because what they're angry about, like that's not enough of a reason to kill Dewey. If Roman killed Dewey, that would have been like, okay, I get it. Like, he's had an entire lifetime of hate and rage and sadness building up, and that's why he finally starts killing people. And one of the people he kills is Dewey. I'd be sad, but like, I get it. Like, yeah, that guy has got a real good reason to kill people. Even Jill, if Jill killed him, she'd be like, you helped my fucking cousin ascend to this level of stardom that eclipsed my entire life. I fucking hate you. I'd be like, wow, that sucks. But yeah, I get it. Freaking Richie and Amber. It could have literally, like, the killers in Scream 5 could have literally been anyone in Scream 5 that wasn't Sydney. And it would have been the same movie. Well, anyone that wasn't the three originals. It could have even been Judy, and it would have been the same movie. There's just no through line. There's no layer to it.
It would have been better. I feel like, going back to what we were saying about the movies, I feel like, we met on a Reddit thread, blah, blah, blah. I get that, but I feel like one of them had to have that extra motivation. There had to be some sort of connection to the past for one of them killers too, that would be revealed and be another part of the twist where, like you said, very similar to the Billy and Sue thing, that Billy reveals the whole thing with his dad was sleeping with her mum and all that sort of stuff. And it was like, that's a shock to everybody else. And it would have been good if Richie had some sort of reason, for wanting, apart from just being a crazy fan, that he has some sort of connection somewhere that makes a bit more, adds a bit more to it. So the other funny thing I did notice, like, the first time I watched it, it made me think maybe, one of those red flags that went off very early for me for Richie as well was when they were driving to Woodsboro. And he said, "Oh, I haven't stabbed." She goes, "Well, you haven't seen Stab?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I haven't seen Gone with the Wind, but it doesn't mean, blah, 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 blah."
I've never seen Stab.
You've never seen Stab? Not even the one that came out last year?
I mean, I've never seen Gone with the Wind either, but I don't consider it like a huge hole in my cinematic education.
But then almost in the same paragraph or the same monologue, he mentions Halloween, and then he says something about Jason and Friday the 13th.
A guy named Billy Loomis and his friend carved up a bunch of high school kids while wearing this Halloween ghost mask.
You mean like in Halloween?
No, not like in Halloween.
Oh. Sounds a lot like Halloween.
All right, it's a little like Halloween.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, well, if you kind of know your horror movies, I know there's that still pop culture. You don't necessarily have seen every one of the movies to know who Jason is and Michael Myers. I get that. But I kind of feel like if you know enough about those characters, I'm pretty sure you know a bit about Stab as well. So it's kind of like, it's almost he slipped up. He's like, he knows these other franchises, but you don't know about Stab. I don't buy that for 1 second, but that's just me.
No, I think from the get-go, they showed their hand on him with things like, when she gets the phone call to say her sister's been attacked and she's saying, I'm going to go. and he like awkwardly, ham-fistedly insists that he's coming with her. It's a really awkward moment. It's like, what's going on here? Like, obviously they're not that much of a couple who are that connected that if she's got a family crisis, it's a given. Like if my wife called up and if got a phone call, was like, oh, your sister's been attacked, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm coming. And she'd be like, no. Like it would just be like, get your shit, we're going. Like there'd be no conversation. So it's very clear that he's forcing his way to come along because he wants to be, not for her, but he wants to be a part of this. And that just shows the hand early that, yeah.
And the fact that they're working in a bowling alley and they can both pack up while I'm assuming bowling alley is still going and go, well, boss, we're leaving. We have to go to another town.
We have to go to a murder village now. Goodbye, boss. Cheerio. I just remembered Matthew Lillard is in this movie.
Yes.
He has a voice cameo, and so is Henry Winkler, and so does Drew Barrymore. They all have voice cameos.
Does Henry Winkler?
Henry Winkler, I can't remember. So Matthew Lillard is the voice of Ghostface in the Scream, in the Stab 8 video.
No, but he's also. I thought he was in that. I thought he was the visual as well. I thought he was.
Oh, was he? There you go. I haven't heard that. And Drew Barrymore is the principal at Woodsboro High. She's the voice of the principal. And Henry Winkler, he did something. I can't remember what.
Well, I can say Jamie Kennedy did a voice as well.
Oh, did he? Oh, there you go.
Jamie Kennedy did something at the party when they're all leaving, and when Richie's kicked him out. He's some guy's old man just kicked us out or something. I don't know, whatever the line is. It's really bad, but
so
yeah.
So there you go. For all the insane people out there, like, bring back Stu. That's 3 Scream movies he's been in. Leave it alone. He's been in enough. All right. He's in Scream. He's in Scream 2. He's in Scream 5. It's done. He's had his little moments. I was going to say, I feel like I've been the negative one in a lot of this, but there were elements of this that I did enjoy a lot. I do think that the supporting cast, not Tara and Sam, but like the supporting cast, I think mostly they were fun. Amber, like I said, I clocked her as the killer pretty early on. She played it as the killer the whole way through. And I don't know if that was like, hey, if you play it like a killer, no one would expect to be the killer, but it was very obvious. I really, really like Jack Quaid in this movie. I think Richie, I don't think he works as a killer, but I think Jack Quaid does a great job. And I think he does a great job of delivering some pretty ridiculous moments, like when he's revealing his motives. And he's like, how can fandom be toxic? Where the reason, like, a lesser actor would have absolutely shit the bed on that line read, because it's not a great line, but he does really, really good in it. I don't want to pile on, but I did struggle a lot with Tara and Sam. I didn't care about them as characters. I didn't care if they lived or die. I kind of hope they die at every scene so we could just get rid of them. I didn't find them charismatic or interesting or exciting. I kind of wanted them gone from the movie. If they had have killed them off real quick and then the friends hung around, I would have been much, much happier. I don't think either of them work as Sydney replacements or Gale replacements or leads as final girls in this movie. And I'm not excited about following their story in Scream 6. I don't care about those characters. I don't know if it's casting, writing, directing. I have to watch it. I'm going to watch this movie a bunch more times, but I have to watch it again to figure out what doesn't work for me.
Yep.
But a big part of it is those characters.
I feel
just
like
uninteresting or sympathetic. I don't care if they live or die.
I feel like what I've seen a lot on the internet, a lot of people aren't really happy with Melissa Barrera, who is Sam Carpenter. A lot of people are a bit not huge on her performance or for what have you. And
yeah, and I don't. A lot of people against the actors. I'm not blaming the actors for this. I think this is somewhere in the development of the characters, or the direction, or the writing of the characters, or all of it. I don't know, but yeah. And it's something that I think we spoke about on another episode, is the way that teenagers and victims and final girls are represented in modern horror. Is it used to be, the final girl was the virgin and she was innocent and she was, blah, 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 all those bullshit stereotypes they created that cause more harm than good. And the people who got killed were, you can never drink, you can never do drugs, you can never say I'll be right back, you can never have sex. Randy lays it out for us. Modern horror, that's what you get. Like modern horror, the teenagers are all doing usually prescription pills, but they're doing drugs, they're drinking, they're having sex. They're usually not very nice. They're usually pretty cynical, disaffected, detached people, because that's what 40 plus screenwriters think teenagers are these days. But what you get when you put them in a horror movie, some unlikable, irredeemable characters that you don't care if they die.
So that sounds like the I Know What You Did Last Summer Amazon Prime TV show.
Yeah, and the Rob Zombie Halloween remake, and a lot of modern takes on horror. Like one of the things that really worked about Halloween 2018 is that you have a little bit of cynicism tucked in, but the three main characters, Laurie's granddaughter and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's friend, they are all pretty likable characters. And when I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but when the boyfriend's friend gets killed in Halloween 2018, you really you go, oh God, like it's a bit sad. And when the granddaughter's boyfriend gets killed in Halloween Kills, it's a violent, bloody, horrific death, but it's also like, man, that guy's a bit of a dick, but I still liked him. Like he had more good qualities than bad. In Scream 5, Wes was probably the character I was saddest to see go. I really wanted more from him. Yeah. His death was like, from a setup point of view, was a great set piece. His death was really great, really interesting way to do it. Really surprising because it comes immediately off the back of Judy Hicks's death.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't sure if Judy was going to make it or not. I was as surprised that they killed her as I would have been if she lived. And I didn't want her to die. I like Judy Hicks. I think she's a great character, but also didn't mind they killed her because it was like, oh shit, like that was a really broad daylight, front stoop, violent murder. Haven't seen that before in a Scream movie. But you don't expect another big character to go in the same scene. That doesn't usually happen. So that was big surprise from West dying. Really sad he went. Really like Dylan Minnette. I think he was great in this, and a great character to be called Wes. Like he really, carried the mantle of a very big character name. I liked him a lot, and I was bummed he left. Last thing before we get into the final wrap-ups, how do you feel about the number of survivors in this movie? Because it feels like at the end of this movie, just fucking everyone is alive.
Okay, so this is, especially, this is probably even after the first viewing, but, when you watch it 3 times, you can sort of analyze these little bits and pieces. I'm sort of glad you asked the question. But so Mason Gooding's character, what's his name? Chad. So again, I'm no doctor, and we know some of these characters in the movies can cop a stab here or there, and that's if they're lucky enough and they get attention and quickly enough, they can survive. But Chad should be well and truly dead. He got stabbed, I'm pretty sure,
so
in a major leg artery, and he was bleeding out. Then as
bleeding out so much that he couldn't walk anymore. He collapsed because he was fainting from.
And then he starts running, and then he gets stabbed in the back, and then another quick 3 stabs to the gut. And I was kind of like, well, he's dead. And then Liv is gone, and she's like, oh my God. And he's been out there for a while because a lot of stuff still happens after this fact. So I'm like, he's totally dead. But from what I've heard in interviews, that as soon as they cast him, the directors loved him. Like, he's such a good guy.
I love him. I think he's great.
I obviously wrote it in that they would at least try and keep him. But he, as far as I know, a bit like Dewey and Randy, that they were so loved, it was kind of like they were supposed to die, but we're going to keep him just in case, potentially for a sequel. So it was kind of nice to see him. But again, I was like, he should never have survived that. The funny one was Mindy. I didn't mind her surviving, though she seemed to die. She didn't, I don't know whether
she died. She straight up died. And then at the end, she's alive.
Well, but this is the thing. Like, I mean, I guess you can die and not necessarily have to have a lot of blood, but I felt like for her death scene, or supposed death scene, it didn't look, and the angles and the whatever they shot at, it looked like she got stabbed near the shoulder, nothing major. And there wasn't, at one point she did, there's a lot of blood, or there's too much blood. I'm like, I'm not seeing much blood. I felt like they, I don't know, for it, they maybe had the shot too close on her and Sam's character for us not to have to be able to see a pool of blood. Because for me, that didn't look like she was majorly damaged. That it didn't surprise me that she survived. But again, I think she was supposedly potentially supposed to die. Who else?
Is it? So at the end, we have Chad,
Oh, yeah.
Indy, Tara, Sam,
And the two final
Gail,
girls. Yeah.
and Sydney. So 6 people who were wounded in the pursuit of killing the Ghostface are alive and well at the end of this movie, which feels like a lot. Feels like a lot for the end of a Scream movie. It feels like a lot for any horror movie. But I feel like we kind of got not cheated, but tricked a little bit with how people with the body count in this movie, because you get pointless out of nowhere does nothing deaths like Vince, and then you get major characters like Chad getting violent cool deaths who then are alive. I will say though, I'm glad the twins are alive, because I'm more interested in their story in Scream 6 than in Tara. I hope Tara and Sam aren't in Scream 6. I hope they're in hiding and they're like, oh, no one's seen Tara and Sam since, and it's all about the twins and we can follow them, because those are really interesting characters with a really interesting dynamic. Having Chad, the football star, now be like a Dewey style, I've got a weird limp cripple thing because I got stabbed in the nerve, and have the obsessed movie fan Randy version, be recovering and slightly twisted by what happened. Like, there's a lot you can do with those characters. I'm really excited where they go. Sam and Tara, kill them in the opening scene of Scream 6. That's how I want Scream 6 to open. Sam and Tara are in a cabin somewhere hiding out.
Wow,
and Ghostface kills them both.
You're really out on these girls, these poor girls.
It's just it's honestly the actors. I like the actors; they're great. It's just the characters do nothing for me as leads. I don't want to watch another 2 hours of those characters in peril, because I don't care if they live or die.
Oh, that's fair enough.
If you get new writers on board for the next one who can fix that, I'll be very excited to see it. I'm really eager to watch this movie again, because I honestly, even now, having spent the last hour and a bit talking about it and me largely picking it apart, I still can't tell you how I feel about it. I still don't know how I feel about it.
Give me
a few things.
Give me the good. Give me the good. Give me something good.
The good of this movie is, well, first and foremost, the good of this movie is there's another Scream movie in the world. And I'm always happy that there's another Scream movie in the world. And this Scream movie has Gail, Dewey, and Sydney back. I think my biggest good that I would take away from this is the acknowledgement and the connection to the Scream universe. Things like Sydney's married to Kincaid. That's my favorite thing about the movie. I think I was filled with so much joy, because it's just been such a thing that pissed me off for years. Like, they're clearly a couple at the end of Scream 3, and he doesn't even get a mention in Scream 4. Like, she wears boyfriend from 2. It's gone right out of my head.
Oh, Derek.
She wears Derek's necklace, chain around her neck all the way through Scream 3. So she doesn't have to mention him, but it's like, oh yeah, clearly he existed and clearly she remembers him. Like, everyone else from the previous movies gets mentioned. He's alive and he doesn't get mentioned. So I was so thrilled that they did something with that. I was thrilled that Kirby's canonically alive. I loved the little hints and the nods, little fun stuff. Like, they finally announced the name of the street, and it's Elm Street that they live on. Like, that was fun. I liked that. Some people may not like that. I loved Dewey's scene. The one thing I loved about Dewey's character is the scene where Sam and Richie come to her and immediately is like, how long have you known him? And he just starts like digging in on Richie right away. And I was like, oh crap. Like, that's a good scene. That's what would happen when somebody else is the victim of a Ghostface killing and you're Dewey Riley. You're like, okay, he's exactly what the fuck is going. And he nails it. Like, Dewey was right. Right out of the gate, Dewey was right. So I really liked that. I liked seeing Sydney acknowledge how Sydney Prescott she is. Just little moments like don't come here. She's like, I'm not. Why the fuck would I go to Woodsboro? She's not like, I'll be right there to save the day. Like, she's very much like, I'm not fucking going to Woodsboro. And the only thing that gets her there is the death of a friend. And I love, do you have a gun? I'm Sidney fucking Prescott. Of course I have a gun. Like,
Do you have a gun?
I'm Sidney fucking Prescott. Of course I have a gun.
moments like that really fill me with joy. What about you? What's your good?
Oh, I actually have a few goods. Look, overall, I think I really enjoyed the experience. Yes, it'll never match the first two, I don't think. But I think for what they had to work with, it's 25 years down the track to try and make the legacy characters count and realistically be in this and try and spawn a new set of sequels. I think they've done a pretty good job. But we'll get into my bad and ugly, which I think are just minor nitpicks, really. But I think it was James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick that did the screenplay. Kevin Williamson was, some sort of producer and was involved with it. So I think they got the right team together. I think Ready or Not was really good. So Matt and Tyler coming on board and one of their I assume he's a friend or producer, Chad. I've forgotten his last name. Anyway, that team.
The Radio Silence team.
Yeah, pretty much the Radio Silence team. I think they've done a good job. But it's funny because I totally respect, I think, you were saying about you don't care about Sam and Tara. I think I can sort of see what you're saying. I'm not sure I need to see them again as well. I don't know if they left the greatest impression on me, but I didn't hate them enough to not want to see them either. Like I'm not fussed either way if they didn't come back. But
that's it. I don't hate them either. I just nothing them. Like
I thought Jenna Ortega's, especially her opening scene, but a lot of stuff she's in, I think she's really good.
I like her. I think she's a great actress.
The one thing I will agree with, and I don't want to sound like I'm jumping on with all the toxic fanboys and all that. I actually think I actually really liked Melissa Barrera, but I did feel like sometimes her performance was a little bit off, or I couldn't. I don't know, and I haven't seen enough of her other stuff, but I've heard good things about In the Heights and some of the other stuff she's done. So she obviously can act. Maybe this wasn't her thing, and being the main character. I again, there was parts that I thought she was fantastic in and believable, and then there was other parts I felt like I don't know whether she was given the wrong direction or she didn't understand what she's supposed to be doing, or we're supposed to be wary of it. I'm not too sure, but there's definitely some moments there I was like, I'm not too sure what I'm seeing here. So I definitely would say I would agree with some other people. I wouldn't say she was terrible, but I think she was 50-50. I think some scenes she was really good in, and other scenes it was a very disjointed performance, I think.
Possibly just miscast, like probably just not the right performer for the role. It doesn't mean she's bad, doesn't mean she did anything wrong, but not every actor can play every role. Like that's why you have casting. So
yeah, I will say though, I don't know what it is, and it was I've seen it 3 times now, but I was saying to a mate today, and he goes, "You are truly psycho." And I said, "I don't know what it is, but I find it so sexy when Melissa Barrera is stabbing the shit out of Richie and blood spraying all over her." I'm like, why is that such a turn on? That's just crazy. I'm like, and then I was thinking, it kind of has a bit of a Basic Instinct feel to it, but it's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, just give me that girl with blood splatter on her face, and yeah, that's. I mean,
it is very primal. It probably comes from the lizard part of your brain. You want to see a woman who's powerful enough to take down a saber-toothed tiger. That's probably what you're looking at. You're like, yeah, you could defend my young. That's great. It's just like the monkey part of your brain's like, yes. Oh man.
But overall, yeah, I think there was a lot of good to come out of this movie. I think it was definitely definitely a lot of good. I mean, I've seen it 3 times for Christ's sake, and I've already pre-ordered the 4K Steelbook edition. So
I am looking forward more than I don't know if I'll get to see it this cinema again. I don't know if I've got the energy for that, but I am looking forward to owning it on because no matter what I said, I'm gonna I
Oh,
want it. It's a
and
screen movie. I'm going to watch it, and I want to watch it again. I want to watch it in segments. I want to be like, what is it about this scene that
well, I
gets
think
under my
that's the
skin?
one thing. Like, I don't know about you, but when DVDs became a thing, and the new one of the technologies about a DVD was like, oh, we can have an audio commentary, we can have a documentary, we can put extra stuff on it. When I started buying DVDs, that was the big thing. Was, oh my god, finally,
Special features, baby.
Terminator 2, it's got a commentary with James Cameron. Oh yeah, I want to hear that. Or yeah, when Scream came out, I want to hear Kevin Williamson, Wes Craven, and whatever. But then slowly over time, because I've got so many movies now, there's so many things in my head. I think I want to sit down and listen to commentary. But I don't think I would have. Like, there's some documentaries I'll go, yeah, I've got to get that because I want the documentary. You'll see the supplemental feed. Long story short, there's a lot of discs I get and go, I'll get the slightly better version, which has got everything on it, and one day I'll sit down and watch it all. But really, I don't. But this is the one I'm actually really looking forward to getting the disc, but probably not even watching it because I've seen it 3 times. Is more seeing all the extra stuff they
What
put
have you
on,
got?
but also,
can you tell me?
Well, I believe they have recorded a commentary, so that's for me. That's the next thing that when I get it, it'll be sit down and listen to the commentary and just hear different. And I will defend them as well. They're big fans, and one of the reasons they've talked about how they got into film was they love Scream so much, and all that. So they're not hiding to nothing. It is a bit, again, life imitating art, because they talk about the toxic thing, but we're never going to make everyone happy. They could have made it a bit different, and I wouldn't be happy, and you'd be super happy. I mean, it's just the reality is like they're trying to tick all these boxes and make a really good film and try and hit as much, and for Wes, pay homage to the people that have come before. And I really don't think Courtney, David, and Nev would have come back if it was a completely garbage script, unless they were paid a lot of money. I think they would have really sat out, but I think they were sold on, Matt and Tyler reaching out to them and having the conversations, which talking them through, showing them the script, and them being happy with it. And so that to me says a lot, that I think they came back because they saw value in the project. So
I mean, I guess that is the ultimate good of this movie, is that the original 3 leads who are alive are in it. That's the idea of having a Scream movie with none of them in it. Even just the idea of having a Scream movie with only one of them in it is less appealing than most things I can think of. So that is a big good. Yeah.
Bad. Give me a bad. I guess. Well, you pretty much listed them all, haven't you?
I've saved a couple. I've saved a couple of very specific things, because I always shoot my shot too early. So one of the big bads for me in this movie is, and these are things that stuck out overall. The first one is the score. This score is A, it's not a Scream score. B, I don't think it's a good horror movie score. I don't even know if it's a good score. I didn't really like it. The cinematography, the framing, the way that the shots are framed, everything's very claustrophobic and tight. There's not a lot of room for scenes to breathe. You're getting lots of mid and close-up of actors. And the editing feels off. And the reason that these are all bad to me is Marco Beltrami is alive and still working. Patrick Lussier is alive and still. I appreciate the difficulty of trying to replace Wes fucking Craven, and not just replacing Wes Craven, replacing Wes Craven on a Scream movie where this is the only franchise, the only horror movie franchise where you've had one director direct all of it. Yes, we didn't have Kevin Williamson. Also, Kevin Williamson is alive and still working, and Kevin Williamson didn't write the script for this movie. Like, you have so many huge pieces of what makes the Scream movies so friggin' good right there. And I'm sure, like Marco Beltrami said, he wasn't reached out to do the score. They got the guy who did the score for the last movie they did together. They got their mate. They didn't get Marco Beltrami to score a Scream movie. Huge missed opportunity. You've got Patrick Lussier right there. They didn't get him to edit the film. Huge miss. I mean, for Christ's sake, You've got Patrick Lussier right there. He's a director now. Why the fuck didn't he direct it? He's worked with Wes Craven on everything for 40 years, and you don't get him to, like, just all of these things. They're talking about how much they want to honor the Scream legacy and how much they want to honor this franchise and how they really want to keep it going. It doesn't feel like a Scream movie. The color grading is really weird and green and brown. It doesn't have the brights that Scream movies have. Everything is very muted. The tone is very different, and a lot of that is set by the score. Marco Beltrami's score is very distinctive. To the point we talked about this already in Fear Street 1996, where Fear Street 1996 opens, and we watched it like, is this the fucking Scream score? And then you find out it's not. It's deliberately making you feel like Scream because it's scored by Marco Beltrami, and he wants you to put you in that mindset. And then he moves on because he's a brilliant friggin' composer. So the bad for me is that a lot of the core elements that you don't see on the screen, but you feel on the screen, were right there and able to be utilized conceivably. I mean, if you have the right people doing the talking and the right while it's opening, you could get those three big hitters back. You get Kevin Williamson, Patrick Lussier, and you could get Marco Beltrami back on this film doing their thing. And then it doesn't matter as much that you have a different director. It doesn't matter as much that you have new leads, because you feel like you're in that world, because all the other things that put you in the world of a Scream movie are doing all the work for you behind the scenes and out of sight. That whole thing, like if a movie is really well shot, edited, and scored, you never notice. That's the thing they was doing in movies. What jars you is when those three elements, more than anything else, is off. And so the bad for me is that they were right there and they didn't have them. And that felt from the opening moments, I felt that, and I never stopped feeling that the whole way through the film. That was a big bad for me. What about you? Yeah, what's your bad?
I'm probably not as bad. I did think it was weird that Marco wasn't brought back soundtrack wise.
Big mistake.
Yeah, it definitely is a different soundtrack. Did it really aggravate me too much? No, but I agree with you. I think if they're available, like they talked about, it's almost like weird. We don't have Wes, but this is in honor of Wes, but we're bringing all the main people back, and you kind of go, but you actually didn't. Like, you didn't bring Marco back. You didn't bring, like you said, Patrick Lussier back. And I don't know. I can't speak for those guys whether they had so much else on that they couldn't come back anyway, or they were already booked for other stuff. But I think that was one of the arguments with, and one of the things I've been critical of Scream for is the editing, and it could have been tighter, and they obviously had reshoots and they had a lot of issues. And there's a fan edit that I believe, personally, I enjoy a bit better than the actual edit. And it comes back to, well, Patrick didn't do the fourth one as well. So, and that was kind of weird. So, why wouldn't you get someone that knows how to edit a Scream movie? What, like, if you can make it the best you can, why wouldn't you get the best in the business? I don't. You're right. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. That's not really my bad. I'm just agreeing with you. I feel like it's like you said, it was a missed opportunity. Again, we don't know 100% until they can confirm otherwise that they were unavailable and couldn't take Scream on at that time. I don't know, but it'd be a weird thing for them not to at least sort of ask the question.
Yeah, and I think if people, like, if anyone listening is like, man, it's that big a deal, I would encourage you to like go and watch. I've already talked about in this episode in lots, but I'd encourage you to go watch Halloween 2018. We have new writers, new directors. Pretty much everyone new apart from Jamie Lee Curtis, but they got John Carpenter back to do the score, and that just wraps everything up. It gives you that world, because I think casual moviegoers don't appreciate how much the score sets the tone of the movie more than just about anything else. And those audio cues, those little stings. Like, you sit down to watch a Halloween movie and you hear dun, 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 and you're like, oh, hang on, wait a minute, that's giving me a feeling. Or in Scream, like, you hear the Scream score. I don't know how to replicate it with my voice, so I won't. But like, you hear like the like, you hear that coming. You see Dewey and you hear the friggin' Broken Arrow theme, and like, what movie you're watching. And so I just think that all those things, just missed opportunities that made the movie worse. Could have been a lot more like a Scream movie with very little tweaking to what they did. But I don't know. That's my what. Yeah. Did you say you're bad? or did we just did I just keep
Mm,
hijacking with my bad?
I did I go? Oh, yeah. So my bad. Again, this is just completely nitpicking, but overall, I think we can debate certain, like you said, underwritten characters, this and that about the script. But I think overall, the package is pretty good. But I feel like and I don't know who stuffed this up or whether it is even a stuff up, but I know it's been talked about online. And again, it was something that cropped up in my brain. It's like, that doesn't sound 100% right from what we know. And maybe characters can't always be as accurate as we think they should be, because people say the wrong thing all the time in real life and we take it for gospel until we do research and go, hang on, he just told me this and that's not even true. Just like us telling a story on a podcast. We believe it to be true unless it's until proven otherwise. But I will say there's definitely contention. We talked about timelines before, but one of my bad ones was they obviously didn't cross-reference and watch their Scream movies well enough to know the movie within movies of Stab, because that timeline doesn't really add up either, because
No.
So see, I just feel like, well, that's a massive stuff up too. It's like, how did you stuff that up? Like, how does that?
Are you talking about Judy?
Well, kind of Judy to a point, because they reference in the conversation that there's been a Stab 8, right?
Yeah.
Which
And it's
is
a
maybe
retcon.
then. Well, they're trying to do their retcon of that, but they're doing Stab 8, which was completely different, and that obviously is the riff on The Last Jedi. And then I think maybe that was them being too cute, because in Scream 4 we learn that there's been 7 Stab movies.
Yes, sir.
And then after the third one, none have Sydney because she was threatening to sue them. Now that's what we get told. Hypothetically, like a person can say that and not get their facts right and tell this person, but if they're saying in a movie, you think, well, it's canon. But I guess in real life, if someone said that, if I told you, oh, there's 7 Stab movies, and I said that, and you didn't know any better, you probably go, oh, I trust Cable. He seems to know a lot about movies, until you go on IMDb or sat down and watch and go, hey, Cable said that. What's he talking about? So that could happen, but we've got to take it on face value. In the script, we are told that the first 3 movies are about Sydney, and then the next 4 have got nothing to do. There's one with time travel even.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it's that they're just talking about the 8th, and it was so bad. Yet there's a mention. Richie says something about, oh, Sydney's been in all but one of them, so she wasn't 8, so she was in 7 movies, which doesn't make sense. But then also Judy was in one of the movies, obviously, because
well, that's the thing. Wes says my mum was in one of them. They say nobody cares about whatever the later characters. But if there was already 7 Stab movies at the start of Scream 4, and Judy didn't become a part of that story until the end of end of Scream 4, and then Stab 8 has nothing to do with any other movies, and that's why everyone's so mad. Where the fuck is Judy Hicks in the Stab universe? Like that's a big oversight. That's I think I know you're saying like, oh, I don't want to be like nitpicking stuff, but I think you're right, because this movie in particular makes such a point of how important the Stab movies are. Like the whole point, the reason the reason that Scream 5 exists is because of the Stab movies. So they're vitally important to the very film that we're watching. So I think you got to at least do your research as a writer and a director and be like, okay, let's go and watch the other 4 and let's see exactly what's been said, so that when we talk about these movies as a major plot, like it's not in the other movies, the Stab movies are a throwaway.
Yeah.
They're a reason to have a kill in number 2, or, they're the background of what's going on in number 3. But the plot of the movies, but yeah, in this one, like the only reason that Stab 5 exists is because people are obsessed with the Scream 5 exists because people are obsessed with the Stab movies. So yeah, I don't think it's nitpicking at all. I think it's a pretty big oversight.
Have you got an ugly?
Oh, have I got an ugly? Oh, baby.
Oh no.
So my ugly really my ugly is the film's inbuilt defense mechanism for all of the things that it does that are lazy. So every time that they're talking in the movie about Stab 8 and all the fans and things, what they're doing is they're talking to the fans of films, particularly fans of the Scream films, and being like, oh yeah, when this movie comes out, people are gonna be so mad that we did this to Dewey, and people are being so mad that we, followed these new characters, and people are gonna be so mad that we didn't really follow these other legacy characters, and that we kind of ignored stuff and we did it our own way. And those people are toxic, and those people, oh man, they're the worst, and they're the villains. So what that says to me when I'm watching is, you're making a lot of lazy choices, you're making a lot of mistakes, but in the movie, you're like winking at the camera, being like, we know we're doing all this stuff. So when it happens and it's bad and lazy, when people go, that was bad and lazy, the film's like, no, we said in the movie that if you get angry about that, then you suck, because only people who suck get angry about that. And we know that we did it. So you can't get, it's like if you do something stupid at a party and then you go, oh, I'm such a dickhead. And then your friend's like, what are you doing, you stupid dick? You're like, I said I was a dickhead. You can't call me a dickhead. I already said it. Ha ha ha, I know. It doesn't erase the fact that you just spilt red wine on some guy's rug. Like, you still did something dumb. You still suck. You still shouldn't have done that. And the film is so caught up in being, it really misunderstands what Wes Craven was doing and Kevin Williamson was doing with the meta thing before it was meta in Scream 1 and Scream 2 and Scream 3 by replaying itself. And now we've reached a point in the Scream movie where the snake is literally eating its tail, because the only reason, like I said, the only reason we have a Scream movie is because of the fake movies in the universe of the Scream movies causing there to be a Scream movie, which is just, what's the point? What's going on? And this is what I talked about before. Like, if you don't have another reason, what are we doing here? And it just smacks of a late night writing session where somebody's like, I got a great idea. And I was like, that is a great idea. And they write it down. And the next morning when they come back in, people don't go, okay, that's a great jumping off point. Where do we go? They're like, we got it. We got it. That's the movie. That's what we're doing. And no point somebody was like, I think we need more. Everyone was like, no, that'll do. So it is big time ugly to me that the movie tries to excuse its own mistakes by telling you we're making these mistakes, so don't get angry about it because we know we're making these mistakes, instead of just not making the mistakes. I also, as an appendix to that, this whole friggin' requel conversation.
I can't believe we didn't talk about it. Yeah.
They're ramming down our throats. Scream 5, not Scream. Scream 5 is not a requel. It acknowledges every other movie. It has a fucking character from Scream 4 in it. Dewey says, I got stabbed 9 times. He didn't get stabbed 9 times in Scream 1. Everything that happened in the other movies is not only canon, but it's talked about, and it matters, and it happened. And then the movie's trying to tell us, oh, this is a requel, so we're going back to the original and ignoring the others. You're fucking not. Judy Hicks is the fucking sheriff of Woodsboro. It's not a requel. It's just a sequel. Just call it Scream 5, you lazy bastards.
But maybe it's a requel within their universe. But I know what you're saying. I feel like it's a funny movie too, because I feel like they had Easter eggs that kind of cover off on all the movies. But even some of the conversation, like, I still feel like they focus on some things and then disregard others. So, like, for example, like, obviously Billy's in this movie, and there's this whole thing, it goes back to the original, and it's almost like they've forgotten Roman Bridger, and it's like, and whether
Roman gets screwed in this movie. Roman really gets screwed.
Well, it kind of does, because it kind of, and look, let's be honest, I was never a super fan of, I'm not a huge fan of Scream 3 anyway, but you've written it so it comes full circle, and Roman was the one that inspired Billy and told Billy about what was happening, blah, 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 give him a couple of pointers, all that sort of stuff. You've set that up. But in this movie, they kind of almost don't acknowledge Roman, and they pretty much make Billy to be out the huge mastermind.
They also don't acknowledge Stu. Like, Stu is the crazy psychopath in that movie. Like I said, I rewatched the original after I watched this one, and you realize, like, Stu is fucking psycho in a really fun way to watch, but he's also big time the reason all these killings are going on. Probably more so than Billy. Like, Billy probably would have been happy just to kill Sydney's mom and be done with it. But I imagine that Stu was like, it was fun. And then they just keep going.
And yeah, so you're right. Like, Stu barely gets a mention. Like, I think Dewey does say, oh, he's accomplice or whatever. But again, it's so Billy Loomis. anyway, that's one thing. But then, you know, you sort of get to a point where they're driving in the car and Gail's like, if I just hadn't have written that book about your mum, and she's like, oh my God, shut up, Gail. Like, that's not why. It's like, this is Billy's fault. And you kind of go, hang on. Yeah, okay, Billy started the killings with you, but at the end of the day, Roman was the one that pushed him over that. So again, it was just kind of this funny thing where they were nudge, nudge, wink, wink with some things, but then kind of retconning a little bit on the go as well. Like he said, like there was an Easter egg about Kirby, then there's a potential Easter egg about Stu, and then there was, you know, a couple other things, but then it was not like Judy was in this one, but there was not really a mention of 4 and anything that happened there.
And
I don't know.
She's very underutilized to have a returning, like, you know, again, I hate this term, but they introduced the legacy character as an idea. Well, Judy's a legacy character now. She's been through it. She's survived. She was a part of the unveiling and the killing of one of the Ghostface. Like she's big time now. And I don't think she even has a scene with Dewey, does she?
No, I don't think she doesn't.
Like she gets shafted. Like she doesn't get to interact with any of the other 3 majors. She doesn't get treated like a returning character. Like there's no gravitas or respect to the fact that Judy is back and is sheriff now. Like it's just kind of like, oh yeah, we can get Judy back, so let's just do that and kill her. I don't know, man.
So my ugly, and again, this is a nitpick, but I feel like whether we agree or disagree or whatever, I think overall the script was going okay. You know, I was happy to swallow most of it. And going, yeah, this feels like a Scream movie to me, and hitting all the normal points you do with a movie, in a Scream movie. Until then, I was kind of like, hang on, how does they go to Stu Marker's house? And that was the thing when I knew that was going to be a thing. I'm like, how are they getting to that house? What's the relevance? Who's connected to it? And then you find out Amber's parents bought the house. Now, I don't know about you, and I know I just don't find it believable that Amber could own that house and that not be relevant to any of the other characters, especially seeing, like you said, they're relatives of legacy characters, or you know what I mean, like Scream characters. So, like, there's no chance in hell Mindy and Chad do not know this is the house.
And Wes, like they're all big movie fans.
Yeah, and Wes, and then Tara of all of them, and it's like she might not be a Stab fan, but it's like I'm sorry, but if there was a murder house in my neighborhood, and my kids might not have been old enough when it happened, and I knew, but every other kid, it would be just passed along, and he should go, oh, no one's going in that house. That was where all those murders happened, all those school
when
kids.
It's a murder house, and then someone wearing a Ghostface mask starts murdering people again, the first thing that everyone's going to say is like, oh my God, there's a Ghostface back. Holy shit, Amber, don't you live in one of the original Ghostface killer's house where all those murders happened 25 years ago? Like, come on. Woodsboro's small enough. There's only 6 families anyway.
Yeah. So for me, that's a huge stretch. And I feel like that's a problem with the, you know, stuff that come out, like the teaser stuff, that was kind of revealed that they were doing stuff at Stu's house. So everyone's like, well, how does that work in? And I think that's where I came back to. I thought they're going to do flashbacks to the first movie to show us, again, similar to the third movie, where they'll show us something that we thought was true, but wasn't necessarily true. And they'd show it from a different point of view. And that's why they were there. And then when they started dropping shots of Melissa Barrera in the doorway, and you go, oh, hang on. So she's a newer character. She's in the house. So what's happening? Why are they back there? Or how are they back there? I think the reasoning for them to be there or to get there is lame as fuck. I think. Oh, yeah. And it sounds horrible. Again, I think
the asthma buffer, I leave a spare at Amber's house. Why don't you have a spare at your house, Tara? Why isn't there a cupboard full of asthma puffers at your own fucking house? Why do you have to go to Sam's house on the outskirts of town? Remember the end of Scream where it pans out? They live in farmland. Yeah. The Marker house is in farmland.
So, and I guess that's the crazy thing about it. It makes no sense as well, because when they're driving there, she's like, oh, well, it's on the way. I'm like, no, it's actually not.
It's actually
know,
not on the way to
if you know
anything.
that
It's
if
actually in
you-
the middle of nowhere.
If you've watched Scream enough, you know it's in the middle of nowhere. And even on the GPS, they show it to the end of the butt fuck nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
it's
just
kind
a
of
dot in the
crazy.
middle
It's
of the
like,
woods.
no offense, but I'm like, oh, come on, guys. You're killing me with you're fans of these films like we are, and you're sending this girl to supposedly on the way. No, what? On the way to death or hell? I don't know.
Well,
But it's on the way to nowhere.
The only way that setup worked is if when they were writing it, Tara was one of the killers and she was luring Sam and Richie there because like to the point where Richie's like, I think your sister's one of the killers. I was like, well, shit, if it is her and not Richie, like that would be a hell of a thing. Or if it's her and Richie, that would be a hell of it. I'd be quite shocked. But then it's not. I was like, well, why the fuck are you there? Why did you go there? Like what? I guess I guess that leads to a larger question of a lot of things. Like, why are a lot of people there? Like, I know that Dewey gets killed and Sydney comes rushing back, but she's also married to Mark Kincaid, who is a cop. She also has young children. And also, Mark Kincaid was a part of one of these horrible events where multiple people were killed and he himself was injured. Is he really going to be like, okay, bub, I'll drive you to the airport, have a good flight back to Woodsboro in the middle of a Ghostface killing? No, there's no fucking way. Either he wouldn't let her go or he wouldn't let her go alone. Like I said, like Richie forces his way in. If my wife's like, oh, my sister's been injured, it's just a given I'm going. If my wife is like, I'm going back to that town where that vicious killer tried to kill me multiple times, I'm not going to be like, all right, I'll have dinner ready. Like you go with them or you stop them. And it's the same. Like if Richie, so if Sam really is that concerned about Tara and keeping her safe and getting her out of town, she's not driving to that party. She's driving to a chemist or she's going, hey, let's go to your house and have a look. Or let's go back to the hospital and get some asthma puffers. Or if she is forced to go there by some bullshit reason, she'll be like, stay in the car, lock the door, because miraculously you can walk okay now. You couldn't walk before without crying and falling over because you're so cut up. But then a day later, you can just strut into this party on some crutches. What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Like I really hope that right up until the last minute, Tara is one of the killers, and they're like, actually, no, let's write it out. Let's not make her a killer, and that's why all of that stuff is so.
But see, she would have
so
motivation. Well, then I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't really considered her really as a killer. But she would have that extra motivation. You left me for when
you left, and also she would have extra motivation if she found out all the stuff. If she
and
knew
you ruined
that,
my family because my dad left.
You
me,
ruined my family. Your psycho dad isn't my psycho dad. You're only my half sister. You're not my full sister, and you left me alone. And Amber loves me, and have Amber still be a killer, and have her be totally crazy, and have her kind of like twisted and revved Tara up a bit. And shit, like I said, keep Richie as a killer. Have Amber like find Richie online, and be like, hey, you should go and get this chick, and like do something different. Don't just have two killers. Like have a group of killers. And this,
I just think we solved the ending. It makes more sense if Tara's one of the killers.
It really does make a lot of the shoddy parts of the final act work.
You're right. It's almost like they did have her as the possibility, and they wrote it that way, and then they go, "Oh, no, that's too much. We can't do that."
Well, it's like Scream 3, where God, her name's gonna I want to say Jill, but that's 4. The actress who is playing Sydney in the movie.
Emily Mortimer.
Emily Mortimer, she was like a lot of the way through the movie, she was an accomplice to Roman, and even like her death was filmed so that it could be that she's not actually dead. And then they decided, no, we're just gonna have one killer this time.
That would have been the better way to probably do it too. Is have you think firstly this person survives the normal opening death scene, and then it turns out she's actually one of the killers.
Well, that would be a great plot point if they're like, yeah, we had to make it really, because it's just her and Ghostface in the house. And so we see she gets stabbed to the hand, she gets her leg broken, she gets stabbed in the back a bunch. Like, we know how violent Amber is when she kills. We saw what she did to Judy Hicks. We saw what she did to Dewey. Like, she goes for the kill. So for her to leave Tara alive, because I know like they're trying to get Sam back, but honestly, Sam's coming back whether she's alive or dead. She's coming back if her sister's dead. So it doesn't quite work that she lets her live. But if they stage it and they're like, yeah, it had to be a really violent attack. People had to really believe I was hurt. So no one believed that I was a part of this. Shit, man. That's a twist. That's something I haven't seen in a Scream movie before. The opening kill girl who survives is actually one of the killers. Great. Great idea. I think we should have written this movie. I think we should have written this movie, Cable. why didn't you call us, Paramount? We got all your problems solved after the fact, after the movie's made, and we didn't have to do any of the work. Then we fixed the problems.
All right, so let's look at our rating. How are we thinking? I probably won't. Will I go down the pastry path? I don't know. I was just thinking of maybe putting it up against all the other movies, but I don't know about you.
Well, I'm interested. Like, do you want to rank the Scream movies? Do you, like, after seeing this one, has that changed anything in your Scream canon?
Look, I'll be
ranking?
after the first time I saw it, I probably would have still had 1 or 2 1 on a par. Then this one, then 4, then 3.
Wow.
But I probably, on subsequent viewings, I've still enjoyed it. I feel like the movie does move along quite a bit. I don't, even after 3 goes, I was never bored. I was still looking for the little.
No, I was definitely never bored watching it. Even though
whereas,
I was pretty sure I knew it was happening, I still wasn't bored.
Whereas some of the other Scream movies, there can be lulls in it where it just, the momentum just dies a bit. This one, I still feel like there's always something happening. And like you said, the kills are pretty brutal. And I think, the Dewey, whether you liked it or not, I think because it had stakes, Dewey dying is very emotional. But then, like I said, I think even the Judy and Wes deaths are like so brutal and so kind of sad, and because it's Judy is in his dilemma to save her son, and in our heads we're thinking, well, he's done. She's going to get back, and it's too late. But the trick is, she gets back first, and she gets killed, and he's still upstairs in the shower, and he comes
she still
down.
fails. She gets back, and she sacrifices, and she still fails.
And she's already dead, and he's setting up the little,
that was really sad.
And then there was all these fake outs of it. He's going to come at the door, and then the doors open, and he has that moment where he goes to look, and then he shuts the door and locks it. And it's like, what's scary is he's about to die, and yet his mum's already dead on the other side of the door.
And he has no idea.
So he would never have known. Like, he dies not knowing his mum's dead as well. Like, it's kind of like that whole scene is so brutal yet so sad, and
it's a really great moment.
And I think,
like I said, because he was one of my favorite, if not my favorite, new characters. It was all and I quite like Judy. It was all the more hype for me because I was like, no, don't do it, don't do it. Whereas every time someone else got killed, I'm like, kill him.
I think that's why I probably had it also up in the ratings, because I feel like that was the first Scream movie for a little while, like since the second one, where I had that really emotional response. Like when Randy got killed, it was like, what the, like, are you kidding me right now? And that was this time I actually
don't know, man. I still get pretty sad every time that Kirby gets stabbed. I'm happier now that I know she's okay, but that every time I watch the movie, I'm like, no, maybe this time she'll be okay.
So okay, but I feel like this movie gave me more of that. It was like, oh, at least it meant something. I mean, and that's what you want to have. You don't want to have people that die and you don't care about. So but having said that, I don't know. Like, now that we've talked through it and I've seen it 3 times, I don't know. Maybe it's sort of closer to 4 on the list.
Like ranked 4th or closer to?
No, well, I guess it would potentially fall. Well, see, if you put 2 and 1 up the top, so it's 1, 2 positions done, and then you have that 4. You have Scream 5 in 3rd position, but only just in front of 4, and they're becoming almost level pegging as well. And I don't know.
Wow.
I'll leave it at 3 for now.
Wow, that's huge. That's a huge rating and ranking for Scream 22. I don't know how to do I've been thinking about how to do like a bakery rating. I think in my ranking, it's like, I don't know, it's Scream 1 or 2, probably Scream 1 today because I just rewatched it and it's great. It's probably 1, 2, 4, 3. The episode of the Scream TV series that Patrick Lucia directed, then this. I think No Wes really shone the light on the fact that he was such an important architect and overseer of this film, and then without Wes Craven directing, I truly, when I walked out, I thought, okay, I didn't watch a Scream movie. I watched a really high quality YouTube fan film that somehow got the 3 leads in it. And I think that's what this is. I think this movie is a fan film. It doesn't look or feel like a Scream movie. It doesn't follow any new paths or blaze any new trails. It retells the stories of the previous Scream films in a loving way, in the way that a fan would if they wanted to write their own Scream movie. But it really feels like fan fiction in a big, big, big way. Didn't hate that. Didn't hate it. And I'm very excited to watch it again now that I know what it is. I think the bakery equivalent is if you go in and you order your favorite baked good. If you go in and you order your favorite apple pie from your favorite bakery with your favorite baker, and they give it to you and you love it, and then you go back one day and they give you an apple pie and you bite into it and go, what's going on? And they go, oh, we got a new baker. You know, this is completely different. They go, no, it's the same apple pie from the same bakery. And you go, no, you have a new baker. It's totally different. It's not the same at all. They go, well, you bought it from the same shop, from the same shopkeeper for the same money. The sign on the front is the sign. The box is the same. It's still called an apple pie. You go, yeah, but it's a different baker who made it a different way with different ingredients, and it doesn't taste the same. I want the one the baker made. I don't want the one you sell me. And I think that's what we got. We didn't get the Scream film that Wes Craven made. We got the Scream film the studio sold us. So I cannot honestly tell you after watching it just one time if it's good or if it's bad, or if I like it or if I don't, or if I picked it apart this time, because what really rung out to me on the first viewing is the stuff that annoyed me. And if on a second viewing, when I know what I'm getting, when I know Dewey dies, when I know that it's not going to look or feel like a Scream movie, that I might come away and be like, that was a real good time, man. I was really like, I love seeing Ghostface on the screen again. I love, what they did with it, and the kills are pretty cool, and you can never have too many Scream movies. And I might be a lot more favorable, but I really think that this definitively tells us that you can have a Scream movie without Kevin Williamson writing it. Maybe it won't be as good, but it can still be a Scream movie. You can't have a Scream movie without Wes and have it be the same or even close. You really, really can't. He was just too good, and he knew what he was doing too much, and he made the movies too damn well. It's just an impossible task. And I think possibly one of the greatest things that this movie will do is highlight even more to audience members what a fantastic filmmaker Wes Craven was, that he wasn't just a gore slasher horror guy, that he knew how to construct characters and worlds and stories in ways that were compelling and amazing. And when you aren't sure if he really did that, well, one, you can look at Nightmare on Elm Street and then the others and be like, oh yeah. But you can look at Scream 5 and be like, God damn, like that is a big jump from where we last saw the Scream universe in Scream 4. So who knows? Maybe we'll talk about this movie again in like 6 months when I've watched it 50 times. I'm like, we got to talk about it again. I was so wrong. But right now, I just
no, it's all good.
I'm up in the air on it, but I won't.
It was good. I think we needed to chat about it for sure. And
yeah, I've been dying to talk about it. It has not left my brain since I saw it. It just won't go away. I just keep thinking about it.
I guess to finish up, I'll just have to say, it's an honor.
Oh man.
By definition alone, they're